Naruto Reborn Wind Shadow. Attack the Country of Fire in the beginning chapter 81 to 100. In the forest, somewhere secluded, on a massive branch. Suddenly, as if mud was surging, a humanoid creature with a completely white body appeared. His head looked as if he was wearing a spiral mask, and he spoke in a childish tone. Why? What is Danzo doing here? This white figure was the white Zetsu sent by Uchiha Madara to monitor Danzo. Due to Uchiha Madara's orders, white Zetsu had been monitoring Danzo from a distance for the past few months. But perhaps because his own secrets were being exposed, Danzo had been very cautious during this time, not showing any traces of Hashirama cells or Sharingan on his body. However, with the help of this sensory ability, White Zetsu was already able to determine that the right hand of this Konoha Shimura Danzo had a secret, with a seal on it that even it could not sense. Just then, the hidden Konoha ninjas in the forest began to move. One by one, they set off towards the border of the Land of Fire, divided into 3 echelons, a total of 25 people, jumping off a 100-meter cliff and entering the forest in the Land of Fire. Only then did White Zetsu shift his attention. I see, is there some kind of operation? As White Zetsu subconsciously spread his senses, the feedback he received startled him. I've been discovered. In the forest on the border of the Land of Fire, as Rasa's senjutsu energy surged within him. From the shadows of the forest, the earth beneath everyone's feet turned into yellow sand, condensing into giant tanuki monsters like Shukaku, wearing black armor like samurai, holding a sword in one hand and a shield in the other. This was an improved version of the technique developed by Rasa. Open black lens bracket Dragon Vein Shukaku's aspect division technique close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Sage Art Boundary Shukaku's aspect Tanuki Samurai close black lens bracket. Using Sage Art Boundary Magnet Release and Sand Control to replace the techniques released by Bloodline Limit Magnet Release and Sand Control. Because of the reduced energy consumption and the power of senjutsu energy, he also used the ability of inorganic reincarnation to cover them with a layer of black iron sand armor, making these puppets more flexible and powerful. The Shukaku puppets, which originally only had Chunin strength, now possessed the strength of special Jonin. What is this? Feeling the powerful aura emanating from these giant Tanuki samurai, the Jonin present, although wearing masks, still couldn't hide their shocked expressions. How is it? Now do you have the confidence to deal with these Konoha ninjas? These 12 Jonin immediately became more respectful and excitedly knelt on one knee. Leave it to us, Kazekage-sama. Although they didn't specifically count how many Tanuki samurai there were, it was certain that the Suna village now had the advantage in numbers. How could they not be excited to have such a powerful Kazekage as a member of the village? At this time, Hanataba, who had been sensing the changes in the distance, also said softly. The Konoha ninjas are coming. Yes, I'll leave it to you. As soon as he finished speaking, the Tanuki samurai, numbering as many as 90, immediately took the lead, moving their huge bodies and making a rumbling sound as they attacked in the direction from which the Konoha ninjas were coming. The 12 Anbu ninjas brought up the rear. As for Rasa, he controlled the gold dust cloud and flew directly into the sky. Because he needed a field of vision to control these puppets. Although, with the help of the inorganic reincarnation ability in senjutsu energy, these Tanuki samurai had their own lives, it didn't mean they had intelligence, and they still needed to be controlled by Rasa-like puppet techniques. Fortunately, the combination of magnet release and sand control allowed him to control the puppets without using chakra threads like puppet techniques. And just as Rasa flew into the sky with Hanataba, suddenly, Hanataba exclaimed, her pupils widened, and her face turned pale. This attracted Rasa's attention, and he subconsciously asked, "What's wrong?" Hanataba pointed in one direction with a horrified expression. "Over there. There's a very strange chakra." This startled Rasa, and just as he turned his head to look in the direction Hanataba was pointing, Hanataba widened her eyes again and said, disappeared. This sudden change stunned Rasa, and then he frowned. Because at this critical moment, such unexpected things happening gave him an ominous feeling. He could only ask, what kind of chakra was it? The fear on Hanataba's face hadn't disappeared, and she recalled her previous perception and said, "Very evil, cold. I've never felt such a terrifying chakra. As if it wanted to suck my soul away." Evil, cold. These two words obviously couldn't help Rasa find out who this chakra belonged to. And just then, Hanataba seemed to think of something and said, "In addition to evil and cold, I also felt a strong vitality on this chakra. Oh, yes, the owner of this chakra also seems to have sensory abilities." Suddenly, Rasa, who couldn't think of an answer, suddenly had a flash of inspiration after hearing Hanataba's words. In the entire Naruto world, among the villainous characters that Rasa knew, the only one who possessed strong vitality, sensory abilities, and could run so fast was probably White Zetsu by Uchiha Madara's side. Why would White Zetsu appear here? Is it because of me, or Danzo? Even if it was White Zetsu, Rasa was more worried that Black Zetsu was also here. It's just that he was somewhat helpless against both of them now. Rasa thought for a while and could only tell Hanataba, "Next, I'll have to trouble you to keep an eye on this chakra. If it appears again, be sure to tell me." "Okay." Hanataba also nodded nervously. And just then, below the sky, the Tanuki samurai, along with the Suna village ninjas, met and began fighting with the Konoha ninjas. What is this monster? In fact, they had already heard the huge footsteps in the distant forest when they climbed the cliff. But as Jonin, their strong strength and Danzo's orders still made them continue forward. And in the first echelon, the two Jonin who were members of the Uchiha clan were assigned to two different teams respectively. Although the Uchiha clan had deep resentment towards Danzo in their hearts, they still couldn't openly disobey the commander's orders on such a front line. So, with the help of the Sharingan's insight, they were the first to see a giant Tanuki monster appearing in the forest, destroying all the trees it passed. The monster was as big as a giant, 3 or 4 times the height of an ordinary person. They were made of sand, wielding swords and shields, exuding an unstoppable aura. The Konoha Jonin instantly felt uneasy and stopped in their tracks. Seeing the figures of the Konoha ninjas, under Rasa's control, the Tanuki samurai took the initiative to attack, using a speed that didn't match their huge bodies, and with a bang, they jumped up from the ground and slashed at the Konoha ninjas with the large swords in their hands. Careful! Just looking at that enormous body, the Konoha Jonin at the front could feel the immense power contained within, and they all took steps back. Boom! The body, weighing tons, unleashed tremendous power the moment it landed, not only causing the ground to rumble and shake, but also directly severing trees as thick as 2 people could embrace where the greatsword swung. This caused cold sweat to stream down the foreheads of the Jonin. If they were hit by that, they would probably be cut in half directly. Fortunately, those who could become Jonin all had many tricks up their sleeves. "Leave it to me." One Jonin stepped forward directly, forming hand seals. Earth release. Swamp of the underworld. Instantly, the ground beneath the raccoon monster's feet turned into a swamp, trapping the raccoon monster deeply within, unable to move. Solved it, Khan. Just as this Jonin felt relieved that he had easily dealt with this monster, the terrifying scene that appeared before his eyes made his tongue tie into knots. "Hey, are you kidding me?" Deep within the forest, a massive raccoon monster, like an army, appeared in the sight of all the Jonin, launching an attack on all the Konoha ninjas. Boom! 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 Instantly, all kinds of chaotic sounds rang out in the entire forest. Below the cliff, Danzo, who was hiding here, frowned when he heard this sound. What's going on? In Danzo's calculations, the Konoha Jonin, with a 2-to-1 numerical advantage, should have overwhelmed the Sanagakure ninjas, and the order he gave was to disrupt the Sanagakure ninjas and draw their attention, but now, judging by the commotion above, it sounds like a head-on battle, with both sides fighting back and forth. Yumi Ryama was also stunned. "I'll go take a look." "Forget it, let's go up together. Since it's already come to this point, there's no need to continue hiding." Thus, Danzo led Yumi Ryama, jumping on the rocks of the cliff, and ascended to the land of fire. However, the scene that appeared before their eyes the moment they went up shocked Danzo. The forest before them had been greatly destroyed. Countless raccoon samurai, like giants, were wielding great swords and shields, fighting with the Konoha Jonin. The Konoha ninjas were releasing all kinds of ninjutsu, flames, wind blades, water currents, lightning, and earth dragons flying everywhere. However, the vast majority of ninjutsu had no effect, and in close combat, the Konoha ninjas simply didn't dare to compare with these monsters. They could only use the only weakness of these monsters, their speed, to find ways to dodge and counterattack. What is going on? Danzo was stunned. Yumi Ryama was also stunned. However, he suddenly noticed something and said, "Danzo-sama," in the sky. Danzo subconsciously looked towards the sky, and saw Rasa, floating in the sky on a cloud of sand gold, and a red-haired girl. That hair color, as expected, it's the Uzumaki clan, and the fourth Kazekage of Sanagakure. Just as Danzo looked at Rasa and Hanataba, Rasa also looked at Danzo, their eyes met, and both had waited for the target they wanted to see. 10 kilometers away from the battlefield, White Zetsu finally revealed his figure, looking back at the distance with some lingering fear. "Ari-ri, that was too scary. There was actually someone who could sense me. Luckily I ran fast, otherwise, Madara-sama wouldn't let me off." The current Uchiha Madara, in order to fuse the power of the Sage Body and the Sage Eyes, awakening the power of Samara, has hidden his whereabouts very strictly, not allowing any possibility of leakage. It's just, what exactly is Danzo doing here? Forget it, never mind, I'll tell Madara-sama what happened here first. With that said, White Zetsu's figure once again merged into the earth and disappeared. Border of the Land of Fire. Above the dense forest. At this moment, Rasa, the fourth Kazekage of Sanagakure, and Danzo, the elder of Konoha, faced each other like this. Neither side seemed to have any intention of directly attacking. "Danzo-sama, don't rush, although it's a little different from what I expected. As long as the target hasn't run away, continue to act according to the plan." Speaking of this, Danzo subconsciously squeezed his right hand. Hey! Just then, facing these giant raccoon samurai, after many trials, the experienced Konoha Jonin still found a way to deal with these raccoon samurai. Don't waste chakra. Fire release, water release, and wind release are useless against this monster. Using lightning release can destroy the bodies of these monsters, and earth release can restrict their movements. With the hints, the Jonin immediately had a way to deal with these monsters. However, although as Jonin, most can master more than one type of chakra nature transformation, not everyone can use lightning release and earth release. Among these 25 Konoha Jonin, those who can use lightning release and earth release only account for about half, while the number of these raccoon monsters is as many as 90. "Danzo-sama, I'll go help." Seeing this, Yumi Ryuma could only speak. Instantly, Yumi Ryuma formed hand seals, blue chakra erupted from his body, and insects like seawater flew out from Yumi Ryuma's body, turning into a sky of insect clouds and attacking these giant raccoon monsters. As opponents for so many years, the Sanagakure Jonin also have some understanding of the information of the Aburame clan. This is the Aburame clan's insect manipulation technique, insect deception technique. These insects can absorb all the chakra of the life they parasitize. The Sanagakure ninjas hiding behind the raccoon samurai stepped forward, jumping on top of the heads of these raccoon samurai, facing the incoming insect jade, forming hand seals with both hands. Wind release, wind cutter technique. Fire release, fire dragon bullet. The Sanagakure ninjas mainly use wind release, supplemented by a small number of fire release. The power of several Jonin jointly using wind release and fire release is still very great. Instantly, a large area of the entire forest was destroyed, and the attack of the insect cloud was also blocked. Thus, the battle between the Sanagakure ninjas and the Konoha ninjas completely broke out. The only ones who didn't participate in the battle were the leaders of both sides, Rasa and Danzo. As for Hanataba, she simply doesn't count as combat power. However, Danzo still had no intention of attacking, just standing on the canopy of the tree, only his left eye secretly observing something. He was waiting. Having studied all the information about this fourth Kazekage of Sanagakure, Danzo knew that only by finding a way to restrict the movement of this Kazekage would there be a possibility of defeating and capturing him. For this reason, from the time he became the commander of Konoha's front line against Tsunagaku, he had kept the Roots barrier team by his side. Now he just needed to wait a little longer, and the barrier team would be able to set up the barrier. But just then, a voice that made Danzo's pupils shrink suddenly sounded. As expected of a rat in the gutter, you do everything sneakily, how about it, how much more time do you need me to give you? Rosha's words made Danzo's pupils shrink suddenly. He looked up and saw Rosha in the sky looking at him with contempt, which made him frown and his face turned gloomy. Have I been discovered? As for being a rat in the gutter, he, Danzo, is not a ninja who would have his state of mind affected by a few words. Unable to confirm, Danzo looked up calmly, looked at Rosha in the sky, and squinted his one eye and said, "You misunderstood, Kazekage of the Sand Village. I am here this time to clarify the misunderstanding between us." Clarify the misunderstanding. Rosha was shocked by Danzo's brazenness at this time. However, he didn't mind playing with Danzo, because doing so could relax the other party's vigilance. What misunderstanding is there between us? Seeing Rosha fall for the trick, Danzo said more naturally. Of course, it's about the third Kazekage. I have never attacked the third Kazekage. Is that so? Rosha was unmoved and looked at Danzo's right arm and right eye and said. Is that so? In that case, untie your right arm and right eye and let me see. Danzo squinted his left eye and his expression became gloomy. He already understood that the Sand Village was determined to pin the blame for the death of the third Kazekage on him. Since that's the case, he didn't bother to defend himself, but instead asked in a cold voice. I am very curious, Kazekage, how did you know the secret about me? Rosha originally planned to use the previous excuse, but looking at Danzo's gloomy face, he suddenly thought of something and said. Do you think I will tell you? Rosha knew that if he said such words, even if he didn't name names, Danzo, with his suspicious nature, would definitely suspect that there was a spy inside Konoha. It has to be said that this guy Danzo has no ability externally, but he is really good at internal strife. Sure enough, as soon as Rosha said this, Danzo's face became even more gloomy, and he slowly placed his left hand on his right arm, saying without concealing his killing intent. In that case, I can only capture you and get the answer from your memory myself. Do it. In the four corners of the forest centered on Rosha and Danzo, the four barrier team ninjas finally reached the appropriate location. They unwrapped the huge scrolls behind them, placed them on the ground, and opened them. Then, they formed hand seals with both hands and injected chakra into the scrolls. Ninjutsu 4 Violet Flames Formation. Instantly, 4 purple rays of light soared into the sky, and the light spread around, turning into barriers burning with purple flames, forming a barrier the size of a football field. This change naturally attracted all the fighting Konoha and Sand Village ninjas around. Great, Lord Danzo's plan has succeeded. Seeing this scene, Yumi Ryoma looked at the Sand Village ninjas with confidence, hoping to see panic on their faces, but, to his unease, these Sand Village ninjas seemed not to have seen it at all and were still fighting with them. Inside the barrier. Seeing the barrier formed and Rosha trapped inside, Danzo finally breathed a sigh of relief. However, when he looked at Rosha, he found that this Kazekage of the Sand Village didn't seem to have any panic at all, but the red-haired Uzumaki clan orphan was full of panic. For some reason, Danzo felt uneasy, but feeling the power on his arm, Danzo was full of confidence again. He raised his head and said like a victor. Kazekage, if you tell me now who leaked the secret about me, I might spare you. Oh, you think you have me cornered. Danzo frowned, and then said confidently. This is a barrier developed by the first Hokage, called 4 Violet Flames Formation. It is a barrier that can trap even the tailed beast. Without my order, Kazekage, you will not be able to escape. Who knew? At this moment, Rosha shook his head, and said with a hint of expectation. You're wrong, it's not me who is trapped here, but you Konoha. At this moment. Land of Rivers, Tsurumaru Castle. On the remaining city wall of the castle, Yumi Shibi looked at the distance with a pale face. Most of the Konoha ninjas were also sweating coldly on their foreheads, their pupils were bloodshot, and the arms holding the kunai were shaking. The cold mist, wrapped in killing intent, permeated around Tsurumaru Castle. When Yumi Shibi's insects sent out a warning, it was already too late. The ninjas from the Sand Village had already surrounded the entire Surumaru castle from 3 directions. Moreover, they were constantly replenishing. At this point, even a fool would understand that Konoha had been tricked again. This was the Sand Village's real target, luring Elder Danzo and most of the Jonin away from the mountain, and then, the Sand Village ninjas launched a siege. The young Uchiha Itachi was also standing on the city wall with his companions from the village at this time. Looking around, only outside Surumaru Castle, on the intricate rivers, in the mist, there were ninjas wearing Sand Village forehead protectors everywhere. Their number was at least twice that of Konoha, and the number of Jonin far exceeded Konoha. Lord Shibi, what should we do now? At this time, even if we contact Lord Danzo, I'm afraid it will be too late. A Konoha civilian Jonin who stayed behind said anxiously. From his tightly clenched fist holding the kunai, it could be seen that he was also very nervous at this time. At this moment, Yumi Shibi had already recognized the reality. He did not choose to let the people in his village die in vain, and said with a wry smile. Tell everyone to abandon all supplies, led by the Chunin, covered by the Jonin, 4 people in a team, quickly evacuate, escape as much as possible, and send a message to the village at the same time, hopefully it will be in time. The Jonin's pupils shrank, but then he gritted his teeth and nodded. I understand. As the order was issued, the entire Surumaru castle became chaotic. And around Surumaru castle, Yi Kang, Mi Chuan, and Chio saw this scene and knew that the opportunity to act had come. Attack. At this time, Danzo, who did not know the tragic situation of the village's ninjas, looked at Rosha with a look of confidence. Forget it, it's useless to say more. As long as I capture you, these arrogant words will eventually become a joke. Danzo said, squinting one eye at Rosha, and at the same time, placing his left hand on his right hand, and began to slowly untie the bandage. Didn't you want me to untie my right arm? Now I will fulfill your wish. As soon as the words fell, the bandage on Danzo's right hand fell to the ground, and the golden ninja tool used to seal the chakra on his right hand also fell off. An arm that looked like a pale corpse, transplanted with 5 scarlet Sharingan eyes, made people feel physiologically uncomfortable just by looking at it, was revealed in the eyes of Rosha and Hanataba. This disgusting arm directly made Hanataba tremble with fear. On the other hand, Rosha's eyes lit up after the initial discomfort. 5 Sharingan eyes on the arm, plus this one in the right eye, a total of 6. Plus the cells of Hashirama Senju. This time, it seems that the harvest will be full. Thinking of this, he put his hands together. Outside the 4 violet flames formation. After a period of familiarization, the Konoha Jonin finally knew how to deal with these giant Tanuki samurai. However, knowing how to deal with them was one thing, defeating them was another. Their unreasonably strong defense and immense destructive power made it impossible for the Konoha Jonin to defeat them in a short time. Just when the Konoha Jonin were feeling troubled and at a loss, these giant Tanuki monsters suddenly turned into sand on their own. What's going on? The Konoha Jonin were instantly filled with confusion. They subconsciously assumed that Lord Danzo inside the barrier had forced the Kazekage to release the technique. This made them breathe a sigh of relief. However, before they could fully exhale, the scene that unfolded before their eyes made them widen their eyes once again. They saw the Tanuki samurai, after turning into sand, with the fine sand overlapping and gathering together like a sand tornado, forming a giant monster like a mountain, letting out a beast-like roar. Roar. The sound of the howl created a shockwave, carrying with it a gust of wind. The root ninjas who were familiar with Rasa's information immediately recognized that this was the technique that had once left Lord Jiraiya and Lord Minato helpless. The Sand Village ninjas had already taken the opportunity to escape, jumping to the top of the giant monster's head. Without the slightest pity, the Shukaku-like body raised its giant tail. A rain of sandpaper shuriken assailed the Konoha ninjas. Dash 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 dash. Inside the 4 violet flames formation, the appearance of such a huge monster naturally did not escape Danzo's eyes. The experienced Danzo also easily figured out the reason why Rasa did this, and he glanced at the huge beast in the distance, slowly saying, "It seems that controlling so many puppets is not an easy task, but to dare to be distracted while fighting with this old man." Rasa coldly snorted and launched a verbal attack. "If it were your Konoha's Minato or Jiraiya, I certainly wouldn't have such courage, but if it's just you, it's enough." As soon as he finished speaking, Rasa jumped down directly from the gold sand cloud and landed on the canopy of the forest. Looking at Danzo's cold expression, he said, "I hope you won't disappoint me next, and that the battle won't end too quickly." Danzo's expression was gloomy, and he formed hand seals with both hands. "I won't disappoint you." Wind release, vacuum wave. The battle between the two officially began. Sharp wind blades, like those of a Komedachi, swept towards Rasa under Danzo's control. HMPH. Shukaku shield. Rasa still did not move, and a sand shield like Shukaku rose out of nowhere, directly blocking in front of the vacuum wave, preventing the vacuum wave from advancing an inch. Only the trees on both sides were directly cut off, crashing to the ground with a loud sound. It really is a well-deserved reputation for its defensive power. Danzo's face was gloomy, and he instantly moved. His entire figure began to move rapidly within the barrier. Rasa's defense was certainly strong, but it could only defend against one direction. Thinking of this, he formed hand seals with both hands. Wind release, vacuum serial waves. Dense wind blades surged out from Danzo's hands in the air, attacking Rasa from all directions as Danzo moved. Boom boom boom. Two more Shukaku shields formed a pincer formation, protecting Rasa within. Bloodline limit. Danzo frowned slightly. Compared to ninjutsu that required hand seals to use, the advantage of bloodline limits was too obvious. Since that's the case, just as Danzo was about to form hand seals, the scene that appeared in front of him made his expression change slightly, and he quickly dodged. He saw dense sand thorns extending from the three Shukaku shields, and then turning golden. Sage Art Limit, Magnet Release, Gold Sand Shuriken. Shoo! These gold sand shuriken instantly shot out. Danzo immediately began to run quickly within the barrier, dodging these shuriken, but then his expression changed again. Because these shuriken, after being fired, actually seemed to have a tracking function, closely following behind him. What? This was naturally the change in Rasa's magnetic field after his ordinary bloodline limit became a Sage Art limit, without needing to condense chakra, directly using Sage Art energy to generate magnetic force, giving him a more subtle control over magnetic force. He could now control the kunai that were fired, tracking the target like tracking missiles. Danzo frowned. His hands were not slow at all. Wind release, great breakthrough. As Danzo opened his mouth, a turbulent hurricane surged out from Danzo's mouth. The huge wind force directly blew away the kunai that were following, and at the same time uprooted the trees in the surrounding forest. The entire forest instantly filled with smoke and dust, and Hanataba, who was hiding in the gold sand cloud in the air, could not see what was happening at all. She could only activate her own perception. Be careful. Logically speaking, as a survivor of the Uzumaki clan, given the relationship between the Uzumaki clan and Konoha, she should not help Danzo, let alone actively remind Rasa. But on the one hand, Konoha did not take any action when the Uzumaki clan was destroyed, and on the other hand, the terrifying appearance of Danzo's arm just now made Hanataba understand what might happen if she fell into this man's hands. Hanataba's reminder had just sounded. In the white smoke and dust, Danzo's figure turned into an afterimage, appearing in front of Rasa at an extremely fast speed, holding a long sword and stabbing towards Rasa. Die! Clang! The golden gold sand directly gathered into a giant sand hand, pinching the long sword that Danzo had stabbed. Gold sand hand. What? Danzo tried hard to pull the long sword out of this sand giant hand, but found that it was useless at all. The long sword seemed to have grown in this giant hand. However, Danzo's reaction was also very fast. He directly gave up the long sword. His figure leapt, waving his fist and attacking towards Rasa's face. Bang! Danzo's attack naturally did not succeed. Because another giant hand, like Shukaku's arm, appeared from the other side, turning into a huge fist and attacking Danzo. Boom! Although Danzo had already made a defense with both hands, he was still punched away by Rasa, and blood began to spew from the corner of his mouth. But the Danzo who was knocked away did not show a painful expression at all. Hanataba's perception immediately understood why. Be careful, it's a clone, the main body is below. Bang! How could Hanataba's reminder speed keep up with Danzo's actions? At this moment, behind Rasa, the unharmed Danzo appeared from below the forest, stretched out his palm imprinted with a curse seal, and grabbed towards Rasa. The battle is over. Is that so? Rasa's clear and cold question sounded. What? Danzo instantly felt that something was wrong. Then, he saw a cold light reflected in his eyes. It was the long sword he had just abandoned, but at this moment it had turned into the enemy's weapon, and under the control of magnetic force, it brushed past Rasa's cheek and stabbed towards his brain. Because his vision was blocked by Rasa's body, by the time Danzo saw it, the cold light had already arrived in front of him. Stab! In the forest, already a chaotic mess from their battle, Rasa and Danzo stood once again atop two trees. Plop! Feeling the pain on his cheek, Danzo lightly touched it and looked at his finger, seeing a smear of crimson. Although he had reacted quickly, the blade of the longsword had still grazed his cheek, leaving a bloody mark. What a troublesome ability. Although he had heard about the Sand Village's magnet release Keke Genkai and the second Kazecage's sand control techniques, Rasa's current display of difficulty still exceeded his expectations. However, even so, the power of his arm and eye still filled him with confidence, but now was not the time to use that power. After all, how precious were Sharingan? Thinking this, Danzo immediately formed hand seals. Summoning technique. Within the large barrier, a summoning beast that occupied a full eighth of the entire barrier was summoned. This summoning beast had yellow fur, a trunk like an elephant, and claws like a tiger. This was Danzo's summoning beast, Baku, the Dream Eater. At this moment, Danzo and his summoning beast attacked Rasa from two directions. Baku raised its trunk, opened its mouth wide, and a massive gust of wind swept out, as if it would devour everything around it. Trees and sand were all sucked into Baku's mouth. Rasa's figure was also difficult to control under this immense suction, and he was pulled towards Baku. Danzo had also already attacked from the other side. Using the summoning beast's power to restrict my movement and then eliminate me. Rasa tried it, but in the face of this powerful suction, his sand and gold dust had no resistance and were sucked into Baku's mouth. Fortunately, Danzo, as the summoner, also seemed unable to resist this huge suction. He actually went around a large circle from the side to attack Rasa, seemingly planning to get behind him. Seeing this, Rasa simply gave up resisting, allowing his body to be sucked towards Baku. This stunned Danzo, who didn't understand Rasa's intention. Just as Rasa's figure was about to reach Baku's mouth, Rasa raised his arm, and a huge golden iron rod appeared in his hand. Sage Art Boundary Release Magnet Release Rui Jingu Bang. Rasa swung his arm, and the huge golden rod was directly inserted into Baku's mouth. Instantly, Baku let out a miserable scream. Ah! Its huge body struggled and twisted in the forest, destroying all the surrounding trees, and the immense suction also disappeared. Rasa had already taken advantage of the situation to reach the top of Baku's head, placing his right hand on its head. It's a pity to leave such an excellent summoning beast to you. Shoo! Instantly, sand turned into sand waves beneath Baku's feet, enveloping the entire Baku, and seals appeared one after another. Grand Burial Ceiling. Danzo wanted to stop it, but it was already too late. He could only watch helplessly as the summoning beast he had summoned was not only unable to restrain Rasa, but was instead sealed by him. Danzo tightly gripped the shuriken in his hand, completely feeling the other party's difficulty. It seemed that he couldn't take down Rasa with his power alone. If that's the case, Danzo finally took out his trump card. He unwrapped the bandage from his right eye, revealing a 3-tomo Sharingan. The moment the 3-tomo appeared, Rasa felt that Danzo's aura seemed to change, becoming even more sinister. Oh, so you're not hiding it anymore. You've even exposed the Sharingan in your right eye. Danzo held a kunai and channeled chakra into it. Wind release chakra was injected into the kunai, forming an invisible wind blade. Wind release vacuum blade. Danzo then said with a cold expression, his scarlet Sharingan staring at Rasa. This is the eye of my old friend, Uchiha Kagami. Although I despise the Uchiha clan, I must admit the power of the Sharingan is immense. Hearing this, Rasa also became more serious, but said, this shouldn't be just from Uchiha Kagami, right? It seems that a guy like you doesn't even spare his own friends. This wasn't to say that Rasa was afraid of the three-tomo Sharingan, but rather worried about the appearance of the Mangekyo. After all, he had no information about Uchiha Kagami. Danzo, sensing Rasa's diverted attention, narrowed his eyes and said without showing weakness, HMPH, dedicating everything to the village was Kagami's dream. I'm just fulfilling his dream. What a thick face. Let me see how powerful Uchiha Kagami's eyes are. As soon as he finished speaking, Rasa put his hands together. Unlike all the one-way techniques just now, at this moment, the earth within the entire barrier began to flow, turning into flowing sand waves, and the trees in the forest underfoot were all swept into it. Quicksand waterfall flow. Danzo also instantly leapt up, using the tree trunks on the sand sea-like canoes to attack Rasa. Sand Gold World Method. Countless golden sharp thorns instantly extended from the sand waves underground, like countless tentacles, attacking Danzo, who was constantly jumping on the sand waves. Danzo's right eye's blood-red three-tomo Sharingan spun rapidly. Danzo's own taijutsu was already strong, and his movement speed was very fast. Combined with the Sharingan's powerful insight, he easily avoided these stabbing thorns, constantly approaching Rasa. When he encountered some that were difficult to dodge, Danzo held the sharp wind blade and directly cut off these thorns. In this instant, with the power of the three-tomo Sharingan, Danzo's strength directly increased by a level. In Rasa's eyes, Danzo's strength used to be only at the level of an elite Jonin, but now he had touched the upper limit of the cage level. Even Rasa felt a hint of pressure. The previously invincible sand-iron method was actually somewhat helpless against the current Danzo. It could only be said that the Sharingan was indeed one of the strongest cheat items in the Naruto world. Of course, with Rasa's strength surpassing cage level, the current Danzo was only slightly troublesome to him, especially after he used his trump card. But Rasa didn't do so, because he was waiting for a chance to kill with one blow. From the moment Danzo appeared here and revealed the Sharingan, the 5 Sharingan on this arm, the one in his right eye, and the Hashirama cells on his right arm were all regarded as his own by Rasa. How could he allow Danzo to waste them as revival coins like he did against Sasuke? At this time, Danzo, looking at Rasa who was close at hand, rotated his three-tomo Sharingan in order to guard against Rasa's actions, wanting to see the flow of chakra within Rasa's body. However, the scene that appeared in front of him stunned him for a moment and he gave up this attack. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. As one of the 2 major dojutsu in the ninja world, both the Sharingan and the Byakugan have the ability to observe the flow of chakra within a ninja's body, but the difference is that the Sharingan's perspective is based on the ability to see the existence of chakra. In other words, the Sharingan can only see the flow of chakra within a ninja's body, but cannot see the meridians and acupoints. If the target is a person without chakra, then nothing can be seen. At this moment, Danzo's situation is like this. When he mobilized the dojutsu of the Sharingan in his right eye, wanting to observe the flow of chakra in Rasa's body in order to guard against Rasa secretly releasing ninjutsu, he found that he could not see anything in front of him. This obviously unreasonable scene made his pupils shrink, and then he abandoned the advantage of having already rushed in front of Rasa, choosing to quickly retreat, while the rotating Sharingan began to observe the ninjutsu released by Rasa. No chakra, still no trace of chakra. Whether it was the sand controlled by Rasa, or the gold dust, he could not see the existence of chakra. This made Danzo once again feel a strong sense of unease. If it were in the past, Danzo would definitely choose to give up, but at this moment, looking at Rasa in front of him, Danzo glanced at the Uzumaki clan's legacy in the sky, the huge bait, forcing him to take a risk. Since that's the case, quickly moving, Danzo, who was dodging Rasa's gold dust world method, began to secretly form hand seals. On his right arm, a three-tomo Sharingan also began to rotate. Rasa naturally keenly noticed this scene. Because he had been waiting for this moment for a long time, it was finally about to begin. Shoo! Danzo, who had originally given up attacking, also rushed up again. Facing Danzo, who was dodging all the Gold Dust World method with extremely agile movements, and came in front of him. Rasa stretched out his hand, and a golden iron rod appeared in his hand, directly smashing towards Danzo's wind blade. Although Rasa does not have a summoning jutsu like the third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, like the Monkey King Enma, with his magnet release plus matter transformation, inorganic reincarnation, and the ability to absorb chakra, the Rui Jingu Bang he created is not weaker than Enma at all. Clang! The Rui Jingu Bang and the wind blade collided fiercely at this moment. The friction between the sharp wind blade and the metal splashed endless sparks. Although wind release is known for its sharpness lies in cutting, and in terms of destructive power and penetration, it cannot be compared with lightning release, not to mention the Rui Jingu Bang that Rasa created at this moment, which has the ability to absorb chakra under the blessing of sage art energy. Visibly to the naked eye, the wind attribute chakra attached to Danzo's wind blade was actually directly absorbed by Rasa's Rui Jingu Bang. How is that possible? Danzo's pupils shrank, and before he could react to what was going on, a huge pressure struck. Rui Jingu Bang enlarged. Under the ability of matter transformation, the sage art energy injected into the Rui Jingu Bang by Rasa was transformed into gold dust and iron sand, making the Rui Jingu Bang directly 10 times larger, with a weight exceeding 10 tons. What? This is Hiruzen's move. The huge force directly smashed onto Danzo's arm, causing his expression to change drastically, and he vomited another mouthful of blood. Fortunately, Danzo is still relatively young now, and is only less than 60 years old, not yet the 70-year-old old man when he fought Sasuke. This injury is not enough to make him lose his fighting power. Moreover, the experience of fighting Hiruzen allowed him to use the force of the fall to quickly dodge the iron rod that continued to attack. Hey, isn't it over yet? Although the Rui Jingu Bang, which is now half a meter wide and 20 or 30 meters long, weighs more than 10 tons, Rasa can control it very easily due to magnet release, and can even exert a lot of power, such as Rui Jingu Bang Extend. The Rui Jingu Bang in Rasa's hand instantly became like a noodle, heading towards Danzo on the ground. Boom, boom, boom. Each time it fell, it smashed a big hole in the ground. No, I can't go on like this. Although Danzo is relatively young now, on the one hand, his chakra has to be used to suppress the cells of Hashirama on his arm, and on the other hand, he has to support the operation of the Sharingan. The consumption of chakra in his body is already very large. He can't drag it on any longer. Thinking of this, facing the attacking Rui Jingu Bang, Danzo directly formed hand seals with both hands. Wind release Great Vacuum Sphere. The impact force of the huge wind ball actually directly blew away Rasa's Rui Jingu Bang, which weighed more than 10 tons, and even Rasa's body was constantly retreating. Seeing this, Danzo seized the opportunity and directly leapt into the air, actually rushing towards Rasa along the extended Rui Jingu Bang. The explosion of chakra made his speed a few points faster than before. Seeing this, Rasa directly waved the Rui Jingu Bang, throwing Danzo down. But Danzo, who jumped up, just formed hand seals with both hands. The three-tomo Sharingan in his right eye began to rotate rapidly, condensing into the appearance of a large windmill. Koto Amatsukami. At this moment, Rasa's curious question was finally answered, that is, whether the dojutsu of the Sharingan has any effect on his sage art energy. The answer is yes. Along with a tearing sensation, he had a feeling that his body was being torn apart by 5 horses, his head, hands, feet, and body separated. Ha! Seeing that his illusion was successful, Danzo gasped for breath, fell from the air, stood on Rasa's Rui Jingu Bang, and said in a low voice as he looked at the immobile Rasa. This is my good friend, Kagami Uchiha. The dojutsu of the Mangekyo, named Koto Amatsukami, is an ninjutsu that can strip away the connection between the caster's brain and body, limbs, and completely imprison them. Danzo is right. At this moment, Rasa indeed feels that he can't feel the connection between his brain and body and limbs, only his brain is empty there. However, Rasa didn't panic much. Because, as early as the moment he discovered Danzo secretly forming hand seals, his body had already activated elementalization. This kind of technique, which is impossible to predict without intelligence in the Naruto world, made him not worry about being hurt in a short time. Then, such an opportunity is rare, so let's try how to break this dojutsu. Thinking of this, he directly calmed down. And Danzo looked at the motionless Rasa, finally breathed a sigh of relief, and slowly walked over. Thanks to you, Kagami, even if you die, your eyes are still contributing to the village. Speaking of this, Danzo followed the Rui Jingu Bang, walked to Rasa's front in a few steps, and mysterious curse seals appeared on both hands. This is the curse seal of the root, self-affliction curse seal. The illusion of the Mangekyo Sharingan requires chakra support, and it won't last long. Only with the curse seal to seal Rasa's actions is the safest. But just as Danzo's arm was about to press on Rasa's body to seal Rasa, Puchi, a sharp Shukaku spear pierced Danzo's body. Bright red blood gushed out. Wow! A mouthful of blood gushed from Danzo's mouth, and he looked incredulously at the sand spear piercing his chest. This was the first time Shisui's Sharingan had failed. Danzo looked up in disbelief, only to see Rasa staring at him with calm eyes. How is this possible? In the records Danzo had heard of, only those perfect Jinchuriki could break the illusion of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Of course, Rasa was not a perfect Jinchuriki, but he was now using pure sage art energy within his body. After this attempt against the Mangekyo Sharingan, Rasa also understood what pupil techniques were all about. Like other genjutsu, pupil techniques still use chakra as their energy, interfering with the opponent's chakra flow to control their five senses. To break genjutsu, one's own chakra must be much stronger than the opponent's, forcibly interrupting their control over your chakra, or a second person must input chakra to disrupt the chakra flow. Why is genjutsu cast by pupil techniques more difficult to resist? It is because the chakra represented by pupil techniques is more advanced than ordinary five-element chakra. This should belong to the yin attribute chakra of the yin-yang attribute. Now it seems that the level of sage art energy that Rasa possesses is above yin attribute chakra. Although Rasa had lost contact with his body and limbs, he no longer needed to extract chakra from his body. He only needed to sense the sage art energy in the surrounding natural world and introduce it into his body to easily break the Sharingan's pupil technique. In this way, at least when facing Mangekyo Sharingan Genjutsu in the future, Rasa no longer needed to worry much. Looking at Danzo, who was staggering before him, his chest pierced, and blood spurting out, Rasa directly pulled out the spear of Shukaku and said without the slightest pity in his eyes, "Go to hell and find the answer." Above the sky, Hanataba, floating on the gold dust cloud, breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing this scene. If she only had to choose between Tsunagakure and Konoha, there would be no difference to her, but the Sharingan on the arm of this ninja named Danzo made Hanataba, as a young girl, subconsciously begin to reject Konoha. But just as she breathed a sigh of relief, suddenly, the change in perception made her pupils shrink. She looked down and immediately saw an incredible scene. "Be careful," she reminded, but it was too late. In front of Rasa, Danzo, staggering, with blood gushing to the ground like a spring, suddenly disappeared like a phantom, and then, a long sword pierced directly through Rasa's chest. How is this possible? Rasa looked back in disbelief. He saw Danzo standing behind Rasa with a gloomy face, holding a long sword that had pierced through Rasa's body, and said coldly, "Nothing is impossible. From the moment you dared to look directly at my Sharingan, I guessed that you might have a way to restrain the Sharingan's genjutsu. And after I couldn't see chakra flowing in your body, I was even more certain of this. As expected, you were waiting for me here. Unfortunately, I…" Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Before Danzo could finish his words, a smear of crimson appeared in his eyes. Desert Treasure Sword, Shira. The sand blade formed by sand directly cut off Danzo's right hand from his shoulder, and then Rasa grabbed it. At this moment, Danzo's pupils instantly dilated, his eyes filled with disbelief, and another mouthful of blood gushed out. He wanted to take back his arm, but Rasa kicked him away. Rasa looked at Danzo's right arm that he had cut off in his hand, the strange Hashirama face on it, and felt the chakra about to go berserk within it, and finally a smile appeared on his face. Looks like I won the bet. Without the slightest hesitation, Shukaku's cursed seal spread from the palm of his hand, trying to seal the Hashirama cells that were about to go berserk. However, Shukaku's cursed seal, which had always been invincible in the past, only lasted for a while when facing Hashirama's cells, and then showed signs of going berserk again. Seeing this, Rasa waved his arm, using sand to block everyone's view, and then pressed the open black lens bracket Karma close black lens bracket on his right hand onto Danzo's arm. Although Rasa didn't have the idea of solving Danzo here, after all, it would be too wasteful to not keep such a rat turd around to harm Konoha, but that didn't mean he didn't use force in this kick. In an instant, Danzo felt 3 of his ribs break, and he landed on the ground, splashing up high sand dust. The current Danzo is not the Danzo after the Uchiha clan massacre. For him, the Sharingan is also an extremely precious thing. Wasting a Sharingan to activate Izanagi is already an extremely extravagant act. Therefore, after the first Sharingan lost its light and released Izanagi successfully, Danzo cancelled Izanagi. But now it seems that he is ultimately paying the price for his paralysis. But, how is it possible? He had clearly succeeded, and, to be on the safe side, he had stabbed towards Rasa's heart. The successive injuries and chakra consumption put Danzo in an extremely weak state at this moment. After coughing up 2 mouthfuls of blood, he covered his blood-stained right arm and slowly looked towards the sky. He saw that in the sky at this time, there was no sign of Rasa, and what appeared in front of him was a huge sand sphere. At this moment, his rotating 3-tomo Sharingan finally saw it. His arm was floating in the huge yellow sand sphere floating in the air. The green first Hokage chakra seemed to be absorbed by something, slowly disappearing. At this time, Danzo finally understood. He might have fallen for a trick. This young Kazekage from Sunagakure might have had the goal of obtaining the first Hokage's power and the Uchiha clan's Sharingan from his arm from the very beginning. Moreover, it was obvious that this Kazekage even knew about the existence of Izanagi. Why? For some reason, Danzo thought of a possibility. Could the person who revealed the secret be from the Uchiha clan? Otherwise, there was no way to explain why Rasa would know so many things. But who exactly is it? Uchiha Fugaku, or other members of the Uchiha? Moreover, the Kazekage of Sunagakure seems to have the ability to absorb chakra. Even the chakra in the first Hokage's cells can be absorbed. Is this related to not being able to see the flow of chakra on his body? At this moment, countless secrets enveloped Danzo's heart, but he also knew that this was no longer the time to care about these things. The most important thing now was to escape. Fighting was meaningless, and continuing would only lead to death. So, Danzo looked left and right, and could only stagger his steps and quickly run towards the boundary of the barrier. But he hadn't run a few steps when he heard a voice in his ear. "Elder Danzo, where are you going?" The voice, as if from hell, made Danzo's entire body tremble. Then, mustering his last strength, Danzo, wielding a kunai, turned and stabbed towards Rasa. Stab! The kunai easily pierced through Rasa's body from behind, but it didn't stop Rasa from reaching out his arm. Danzo howled in pain as his right Sharingan eye was directly gouged out by Rasa. In that instant, Danzo finally understood why he had clearly pierced Rasa's heart earlier, yet Rasa remained as if nothing had happened. Looking at Rasa, half of whom was composed of sand and half of whom was human, Danzo suddenly understood the abilities of the Hazuka clan and the Ibari clan. At the same time, he also understood that Rasa had indeed come for the Sharingan on his body. Rasa directly took out a saline bottle and threw the gouged-out Sharingan into it. Suddenly, Danzo's pupils shrank. Recalling the scenes he saw when looking at the Sharingan, and then looking at Rasa before him, Danzo seemed to understand something. His entire body retreated several steps, clutching his right arm, blood streaming from his empty right eye, as he weakly thought. So that's it, he actually possesses the ability to steal other people's bloodline limits. Of course, Danzo didn't say these words out loud. Because he knew that if he didn't say these words, he would still have a chance of survival, but if he said them, it would truly be a certain death. Sure enough, a surprise came. "Danzo, do you want to live?" Upon hearing this, Danzo himself was stunned, panting and weakly saying, "What do you mean? Don't you want to kill me?" Rasa retorted. "Why should I kill you? Keeping someone like you in Konoha is the best choice for our Suna." Due to excessive blood loss, Danzo was already somewhat delirious at this moment, but it didn't prevent him from discovering an opportunity to survive. Cough cough. State your conditions. As long as he could survive here, then everything he had lost, he could take back. First, give me the Baku summoning scroll. Danzo didn't hesitate. He formed hand seals, and the Baku summoning scroll was directly summoned. Rasa controlled the sand to take it, opened it with the sand, and after confirming that it was correct. "I heard that you Konoha have something called the Book of Seals, which records many forbidden techniques. Give it to me." Danzo's face was very unsightly, his body was so weak that his eyes were about to close, and he said while vomiting blood, "The Book of Seals is in the village, I don't have it here at all." "Is that so?" Shukaku's spear reappeared in Rasa's hand. "Then, that's a pity." Upon seeing this, Danzo gritted his teeth and took out a scroll. Although this is not the Book of Seals, it also contains some techniques from the Book of Seals. Rasa still controlled the sand to take the scroll, and was very satisfied after just one glance. Impure World Reincarnation. 8 Inner Gates Formation. Rasa contentedly put away the scroll. "All right, you can leave, but only you can leave." Danzo's pupils shrank, understanding Rasa's meaning, but he didn't hesitate at all. Outside the 4 Violet Flames Formation. Konoha ninjas were still fighting against Suna ninjas and the Shukaku Avatar. The Shukaku Avatar's absolute defense was almost an invincible existence in front of these Konoha Jonin. Coupled with the cover of the surrounding Suna ninjas, even if the Konoha ninjas had a numerical advantage, it was not an easy task to take it down. Just then, the 4 Violet Flames formation in the distance was dispelled, attracting everyone's attention. Whether Danzo won, or Rasa won? This was the question that everyone cared about. Under the gaze of everyone, Rasa controlled the gold dust cloud and slowly flew over. The Konoha ninjas wanted to find the whereabouts of Elder Danzo, but they found that there was no one behind Rasa. However, the 2 Jonin of the Uchiha clan saw the red-haired girl on the gold dust cloud, with a look of disgust, holding a white arm, with 4 scarlet Sharingan eyes clearly visible. The bodies of the 2 Jonin of the Uchiha clan instantly trembled with anger. Of course, they wouldn't think that this was Rasa's arm, so there was only one answer. Elder Danzo had indeed stolen the Uchiha clan's Sharingan through means they didn't know, transplanted them onto his arm, and now they had been obtained by Suna. The other Konoha Jonin naturally understood as well. It seemed that Elder Danzo was likely doomed. Even his arm had been obtained by the Kazekage, let alone the person himself. However, now was not the time to think about these things, it was time to consider how to escape. Unlike the gloomy expressions of the Konoha ninjas. At this time, the Suna Jonin were extremely excited. The victor was indeed their Kazekage. Next, what they had to do was to eliminate the other Konoha ninjas. Rasa didn't waste any time and directly waved his hand. Eliminate the others together. Hey! As Rasa joined the battlefield, the Suna ninjas, who were outnumbered, instead formed a one-sided massacre. Upon seeing this, the Konoha Jonin could only retreat continuously. After about 10 minutes, the battle ended. The results were significant. Under Rasa's crushing strength, only 5 of these remaining Konoha Jonin escaped. Coincidentally, 2 of the 5 people who escaped were the 2 from the Uchiha clan. Looking at the Suna ninjas who were still excitedly wanting to pursue, Rasa directly waved his hand. "Alright, don't pursue a defeated enemy. Hey! This operation was absolutely perfect." The 12 Jonin of the Suna Anbu who followed Rasa this time were mostly only slightly injured, and none of them died. Such a battle damage ratio had never occurred in the battles between Suna and Konoha since Suna was established. This made the Suna ninjas feel for the first time that their village was not inferior to Konoha. They all came to Rasa's side, looking at Rasa with admiration. Sandmouse even congratulated him. "Congratulations, Kazekage-sama, for killing Konoha's Danzo and avenging the 3rd Kazekage in the village." Upon hearing this, the others also echoed. But at this moment, Rasa shook his head and said, "No, I let Danzo go. All 12 Jonin were stunned. Looking at their puzzled gazes, Rasa did not let go of this opportunity to increase his status in their hearts. Remember, the most solid fortress often begins to disintegrate from the inside first. As he spoke, he looked at the strange white arm in Hanataki's hand. The 12 Jonin of Sunagakure were initially puzzled until they followed Rasa's gaze. They were first stunned, then suddenly realized, remembering that among the 5 Konoha ninja who had escaped earlier, 2 were from the Uchiha clan. They looked at Rasa with even more admiration and awe. Alright, let's clean up the battlefield. These dead ninja are all Konoha Jonin, there might be unexpected gains. Yes, sir. After the 12 Jonin had left, Hanataba, who was next to Rasa, looked at the arm in her arms with some disgust, enduring the feeling of nausea in her heart, and asked softly. Is it really okay to let that Konoha ninja go like that? What if he leaks your information? Even Hanataba knew how important information was in the world of ninja. Rasa shook his head. He had of course considered this question, but compared to the benefits of letting Danzo go, this little loss was worth it. Firstly, Rasa's strength was constantly increasing, which meant that the information about him was also constantly changing. If they used old information to deal with him, they would instead suffer losses and fall into a trap. Secondly, Konoha with the Uchiha and Konoha without the Uchiha were completely different levels of villages. Rasa would never do something that harmed himself to benefit others, helping Konoha get rid of the poisonous tumor that was Danzo. What if Konoha didn't destroy the Uchiha clan without Danzo? Then he would really suffer a big loss. Finally, even if Danzo leaked all his information, attracting many coveters, he would not be afraid. It could only be said that he deserved to be the #1 cheat in this world. Danzo definitely didn't treat him badly, transplanting the most primitive Hashirama cells, which brought him a great surprise. Thinking of this, Rasa stretched out his right palm. The open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket on his right palm changed for the first time, a black straight line extending from one corner of the open black lens bracket karma close black lens bracket rhombus, finally forming a black dot below his middle finger. As this change occurred, Rasa closed his eyes, feeling the natural energy of the entire world. In the sensory world, the largest energy ball representing the chakra of this world began to show a small green dot inside the planet. As for what this small green dot was for, a small green sapling slowly grew out of Rasa's palm. At this moment, Rasa had an understanding. He finally understood why Hashirama Senju's wood release was so powerful. Because Hashirama's wood release was not ordinary trees at all. Its essence was the God Tree, which was the power of the 10 tails. And the God Tree, or rather the 10 tails, was the collection of all chakra in this world. And at this moment, he didn't know if it was an illusion. Rasa suddenly had a feeling of being connected to this world. Hanataba, who was next to Rasa, widened her pupils the moment she saw the green sapling in Rasa's palm, covering her small mouth with her hand. As a survivor of the Uzumaki clan, Hanataba certainly knew what this meant. Land of Fire. In the dense forest, a golden figure constantly flickered through the forest, each time instantly moving more than 1,000 meters. Wherever he landed, strange procedure were marked, whether on stones or trees. This person was naturally Minato Namikaze. Since learning the Flying Thunder God technique, he had consciously laid down his Flying Thunder God procedure across the entire ninja world's land, making him the fastest person to provide support in the entire ninja world. But even so, Minato's expression was still rarely gloomy. Too slow, still too slow. He had received the Hokage's order half an hour ago, only then did he learn about what had happened on the battlefield in the Land of Rivers. Looking at the information on the scroll, Minato, understanding the seriousness of the situation, had no time to care about his body's fatigue and began to rush towards the battlefield in the Land of Rivers. Even though he was now doing his best, he also knew in his heart that it was too late. According to the information, by the time the news from the battlefield in the Land of Rivers reached the Hokage, an hour had already passed, and an hour was enough to change many things. Minato's speed was really fast. With the help of the Flying Thunder God technique, the border of the Land of Fire, which usually took a day to reach, was reached by Minato in less than 10 minutes. Just then, he sensed something and quickly teleported over. At the border of the Land of Fire, dozens of Konoha village ninja were fleeing towards the village in a sorry state. One of them was his good friend, Shibi Aburame. However, he was extremely weak at this time, covering his village companions with injuries all over his body, quickly running away. Seeing Minato appear, the Konoha ninja seemed to have seen a savior. "Great, it's Lord Minato. Our reinforcements have arrived." Minato. Just then, there was also movement behind them, and the ninja chasing after them from Sunagakure appeared one by one. Minato immediately stood in front of the village's ninja. But these Sunagakure ninja did not continue to attack, but were all shocked after seeing this golden-haired figure. This appearance. It's Konoha's yellow flash. Damn, so fast. The Kazekage-sama has ordered that if we encounter the yellow flash during this pursuit, we should give up directly. We retreat. In some unwilling voices, the Sunagakure ninja wisely chose to stop the pursuit. Seeing that Minato had scared away these Sunagakure who were chasing them with just his name, the Konoha ninja finally breathed a sigh of relief. Their tense nerves relaxed, and they sat down on the ground with a thud, their faces full of dimness and confusion. Minato walked forward a few steps, looked at Shibi, who was being supported by an Uchiha youth, and asked, "Shibi, are you okay?" Shibi Aburame's face, covered with blood, was filled with guilt, and he said weakly, "I'm sorry, Minato, I could only save so many." Hearing Shibi's answer, Minato, understanding what Shibi meant, trembled all over, his face full of disbelief. That was more than 1,000 Konoha ninja, and only a dozen people escaped. Minato clenched his fists tightly, suppressing the sad emotions in his heart, and asked, "What exactly is going on? We were ambushed." Sunagakure had planned this operation long ago, even the puppet troops were secretly dispatched. Our front and rear paths were cut off, and the Jonin were all taken away by Elder Danzo. Damn, I should have thought of it sooner. At this time, Minato already roughly knew everything that had happened. He didn't question anything, because it didn't matter anymore. He just said calmly, "You guys rest here first, I'll continue to take a look." Seeing this, Shibi wanted to stop him, but in the end he nodded and said, "Your chakra. Don't worry, I'm fine." After saying that, Minato's figure disappeared in place. It was all too late. Everywhere along the way were the corpses of Konoha ninja, and even some children from the village were among them. They should have had a more beautiful future. Suddenly, Rasa's figure appeared in Minato's mind. This was already the second time that Konoha had failed in the contest with Sunagakure, but Minato, who should have been angry, was very calm. At this moment, Minato, watching this scarred battlefield, made up his mind. Whether it was for the future of the village or for Kushina, he would become Hokage. The crushing defeat of Konoha in the Land of Rivers was definitely beyond everyone's expectations. That day, after the ninja led by Shibi Aburame returned to the village. Even if Konoha's higher-ups wanted to conceal the news, they couldn't. Before long, the skies above Konoha were filled with various sounds of sorrow and weeping. 1,000 ninjas represent not just 1,000 individuals, but also 1,000 families. Moreover, as ninjas, each one is the pillar and future of their family. Counting from the establishment of Konoha until now, they have never encountered such a huge loss. But the current problem is that even if Konoha wants to retaliate, they don't have the ability. As the news of Konoha's crushing defeat spread throughout the village, the other ninja villages in the ninja world received the news almost simultaneously from their intelligence personnel. The Cloud Village and the Stone Village, while finding it unbelievable, immediately knew that this was a golden opportunity. The third Raikage of the Cloud Village immediately seized the opportunity and began a full-scale attack on Konoha. The third Tsuchikage of the Stone Village naturally didn't miss this opportunity either. However, when he saw the intelligence in his hand, he thought of more. Is the Sand Village growing so fast? Although the intelligence didn't specify how much the Sand Village lost this time, being able to wound Konoha to such an extent was enough to raise the vigilance of the cunning Onoki. Rasa naturally knew this principle as well. Therefore, after the Konoha annihilation plan was perfectly successful, he abandoned the Land of Rivers and transferred all the Sand Village ninjas back to the Land of Wind, adopting a defensive posture and announcing to the outside world that the Sand Village had also suffered heavy losses. However, although Rasa issued a gag order, as long as they were from the Sand Village, they could tell a thing or two from the safe return of their family members to the village and their proud expressions. And the impact of Konoha's crushing defeat, as the news spread, had only just begun. Land of Craftsmen. Like the Land of Whirlpools, it is an island nation surrounded by the sea. In the entire ninja world, the Land of Craftsmen still has some fame. Because the Land of Craftsmen is one of the few countries in this ninja world that is good at producing various ninja tools. But this didn't bring wealth to the Land of Craftsmen. Instead, because of the small size of the country, they became the object of exploitation by the great powers. The ninja tools they forged were bought by the 5 great powers at extremely low prices, and the entire country was reduced to the armory of the 5 great powers. Therefore, whether it is the Land of Craftsmen or the ninja village of the Land of Craftsmen, the Craftsman Ninja Village, they are all planning for an opportunity to get rid of this situation. However, the strength of the 5 great powers has not allowed them to see any opportunity. Until today. Inside a courtyard filled with Japanese classical style. A man wearing armor all over his body was kneeling on one knee, facing an old man in white with white hair. "Kanra, what do you want from me?" The man named Kanra lowered his head respectfully and said. "Reporting to the leader, I am here this time to apply to you, please allow me to leave the Craftsman Ninja Village." The white-haired old man's expression immediately changed as he asked. "What, Kanra, do you want to betray the village?" Kanra shook his head. "No, leader, it is precisely for the future of the village that I want to leave the village." As Kanra spoke, he took out a scroll from his sleeve and handed it up. The white-haired old man frowned and took it, opening it and asking in confusion. "What is this?" "Leader, you heard about the battle between the Sand Village and Konoha in the Land of Rivers 2 days ago, right?" The white-haired old man nodded, saying with some emotion. "I really didn't expect that the Sand Village, which has always been at the bottom of the 5 great ninja villages, would repeatedly embarrass Konoha and suffer such heavy losses. But what does this have to do with us? Don't forget, we can only survive among the 5 great powers by remaining neutral." Kanra nodded and said, "Of course I know this, but that is under the circumstances where there is no way to get rid of the control of the 5 great powers. But now, I see an opportunity." "How do you say that?" Kanra looked at the scroll in the white-haired old man's hand and said. "Because of my curiosity about the Sand Village, yesterday, I personally went to the Sand Village under the pretext of transporting ninja tools, and then I saw this. The Sand Village is now trying to find a way to solve the Sand Village's terrible traffic problems. Anyone who can provide a solution will be granted the position of Sand Village Elder. I think this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for our Craftsman Ninja Village. If we can become Sand Village Elders, we will have the opportunity to approach the tailed beast." The white-haired old man's eyes lit up. "Continue." "Hey, as everyone knows, among the 9 tailed beasts that exist in the entire ninja world, only the Sand Village's tailed beast Shukaku's Jinchuriki is very old. I'm afraid it won't be long before the Sand Village will try to create a new Jinchuriki. And no one in the entire ninja world is more skilled at manufacturing ninja tools than our Craftsman Ninja Village. If we can find an opportunity, we might be able to seize Shukaku's power and revive Lord Kingming. At that time, with the power of Lord Kingming, our Craftsman Ninja Village will be able to conquer the entire ninja world and no longer be reduced to the armory of the 5 great powers." The white-haired old man was obviously very moved, but he also hesitated. "Is it really possible? If we fail, I'm afraid our Craftsman Ninja Village will face a catastrophe." Kanra's eyes were very firm. "Our Craftsman Ninja Village is originally good at making ninja tools. Even if we can't become Sand Village Elders, it shouldn't be a problem to lurk in the Sand Village. For the future of the Craftsman Ninja Village." "I understand, then the future of the village will be entrusted to you. To make it easier for you to act, take the 4 celestial symbols with you." Hey! It wasn't just the Craftsman Ninja Village that had this idea. In a corner of this land, a kind-looking old man was also looking at the scroll he had just obtained. It must be said that this time the Sand Village's victory in the war against Konoha attracted the attention of countless people and gave the Sand Village unprecedented attention, so that everything that happened in the Sand Village spread throughout the entire ninja world. And behind him, in a hall filled with dense incantations, A huge creature, shaped like a snake without scales, was sleeping, emitting evil chakra, coiled in the center of the hall. It seems that it's time to go to the sand village and take a look. With Shukaku's chakra, Zero Tails can be revived. At the same time, in the land of water, Mist Ninja Village. The third Mizukage looked at the intelligence in his hand, and he also had some ideas in his heart. Recently, the Mist Ninja Village has been receiving intelligence that Sand Village ninjas are wandering around the Mist Ninja Village. This is obviously not a gesture of goodwill, but the third Mizukage has no intention of paying attention to it at all. Because the internal problems of the Mist Ninja Village are even more serious than those of Konoha. The Hazuka, Kagaya, and Yuki clans, the three bloodline limit clans that once established the Mist Ninja Village, are even more difficult to deal with than the Uchiha clan. The internal divisions make it impossible for the third Mizukage to mobilize the ninjas of those bloodline limit clans in the village. This is why the third Mizukage has been painstakingly building the 7 ninja swordsmen. But, now, looking at the intelligence in his hand that surprised him a little, he suddenly felt that maybe he could get to know this young Kazekage of the Sand Village. Since the Sand Village ninjas appeared in the land of water, it means that this Kazekage must also have some plans for the Mist Ninja Village. Thinking of this, he also made up his mind. Anyway, trying won't lose anything, maybe there will be unexpected gains. Wind Country, Sunagakure Village. Today, Sunagakure Village is more lively than ever before. Festive banners and lanterns are hung everywhere on the streets, and firecrackers and fireworks are constantly going off. The people in the village are also gathering towards the center of the village with joyful expressions on their faces. Only some people who have just come to Sunagakure Village are curious and ask, not understanding what is happening. What's going on? Why is Sunagakure Village so lively today? Hearing the words, the Sunagakure villagers asked warily. Are you from outside the village? Ah, I am a merchant from the Swamp Country, here to post a mission in Sunagakure. Swamp Country, that's rare. The merchant also understood the other party's wariness and explained somewhat awkwardly. Yes, we used to always post missions in Konoha, but recently, due to the war, Konoha has no time to pay attention to us, so we wanted to come to Sunagakure to find out. Hearing the merchant's words, the wariness on the faces of the Sunagakure villagers instantly disappeared, and they said very enthusiastically. Oh, is that so? Then you are really welcome. Our Sunagakure ninjas are very powerful. Leave the mission to them and rest assured. Ah, yes, we also heard about Sunagakure defeating Konoha. It's really amazing. In fact, there have been many outsiders coming to Sunagakure village these days. In addition to some spies, there are indeed many merchants who come to post missions, because the entire ninja world is currently in a state of war and is very chaotic. Although this is a great opportunity for merchants to make money, it is indeed very dangerous. Konoha, Kumogakure, and Iwagakure are all in a state of war and cannot spare ninjas to carry out these protection missions. Kurigakure is closed off, and there is no way to enter. Fortunately, Sunagakure suddenly stood out at this time. Not only did it prove the village's strength by defeating Konoha, but it was also one of the only 2 ninja villages in the entire ninja world that was not deeply involved in the war and was relatively stable. However, Sunagakure is really hard to find. We almost got lost in the desert. Hearing the merchant's complaint, the citizens of Sunagakure said somewhat embarrassedly. It is a bit, but please rest assured, the Kazekage-sama is already thinking of ways to solve this problem. You should have all seen it when you came. Whoever can help Sunagakure solve the transportation problem, our Sunagakure will reward generously. Yes, we saw it. Unfortunately, I am not very good at this. By the way, why is Sunagakure village so lively today? Are you celebrating the victory of the war? The Sunagakure villagers shook their heads and said happily. No, the reason why it is so lively today is because of 4 great happy events. 4 great happy events. Yes, the first thing is to celebrate the joining of Roran into our Sunagakure village, the second thing is the opening of our Sunagakure Ninja School, the third thing is the reopening of our Sunagakure Ninja Hospital, and the last is the completion of the Sunagakure Orphanage. The Kazekage-sama will personally attend today's ceremony, so everyone wants to go and see. Seeming to see that the merchant was a little unclear why these 4 things were called happy events, the Sunagakure villagers explained. It's like this, although schools and hospitals existed before, under the Kazekage-sama's orders, the schools and hospitals have been expanded and are completely different from before. It is no exaggeration to say that they are brand new. Not only have they become bigger, but they have also become very beautiful, allowing more children to go to school while also making it more convenient for us to see a doctor. As for the orphanage, it is newly built to take care of the children who have lost their parents and give them a better life. Finally, Roran is a small country that joined our Sunagakur village a little over a month ago at the invitation of the Kazekage-sama. Originally, we should have held a ceremony to welcome them at that time, but it was delayed until now due to the war. I see, the Kazekage-sama is really amazing. That's for sure. The citizens of Sunagakur looked proud. The merchant from the swamp country smiled in agreement. Sunagakur is also very beautiful. Before I came, I heard that the environment of Sunagakur was very harsh, but now it seems that it is not as terrible as everyone said. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the Sunagakur villagers immediately became mysterious, and they leaned close to the ear of the merchant from the swamp country and said, "Actually, you are right. In the past, the environment of our Sunagakur was indeed very harsh, but recently the climate has suddenly changed. Everyone says it is the green miracle brought by the Kazekage-sama." Green miracle. Yes, the Sunagakur villagers also looked like they didn't understand. Anyway, it's just that since this period of time, the climate in Sunagakur seems to have suddenly improved. Not only has the wind and sand become much weaker, but some green plants have grown everywhere in the village, which makes everyone feel very surprised. Is it so magical? Yes, so everyone says it's a miracle. Just then, a huge bell rang. The faces of the Sunagakur villagers became anxious. Oh dear, the ceremony is about to begin. I won't chat with you anymore. Welcome to visit our Sunagakur. Goodbye. Watching the Sunagakur ninja leave in a hurry, the merchant from the swamp country grinned and made a Sunagakur sound that was completely different from just now, saying in an unreliable tone. "Ah, really didn't expect that Sunagakur village, which I had never paid attention to, would have so many interesting things happening. If I tell Madara-sama, he will definitely be very interested." The very center of Sunagakur village. Kazekage building, Kazekage office. Listening to the cheers outside, everyone in the office had expressions of amazement and joy on their faces. At this time, 7 days had passed since the Konoha annihilation plan, and everything had been settled. After staying on the border of the Wind Country for 3 days, confirming that Konoha would not counterattack for the time being, Rasa led the vast majority of the main force back to the village to rest. Rasa thought for a while, although in order to avoid stimulating other great powers, he could not celebrate the victory of this war, but facing such a great victory, doing nothing seemed a bit too low-key. Just then, Minister of Education, Mishima, Minister of Logistics, Ryuji, and Minister of Medical Affairs, Iris brought good news that the expansion of the ninja school and hospital and the establishment of the orphanage had finally been completed after spending more than a month. Plus the ceremony to welcome Roran's joining. This is really 4 blessings coming at once. So, Rasa suggested taking this opportunity to hold a grand Sunagakur village celebration. Naturally, everyone had no objection to this. It can only be said that ninjas really work very fast. After Rasa's order was issued, the village prepared everything in just 3 days. Listening to the cheers outside, everyone in the house who had changed into dress up were a little trance. The village hasn't been this lively in a long time. The last time was when the second Kazekage-sama became Kazekage. Ebizo said with emotion. The old Chio also said with a trace of relief and reminiscence on her face. Well done, Rasa. You have fulfilled what you said and restored the glory of the second Kazekage-sama's time. Now you are a qualified Kazekage. Although Rasa initially threatened her with her grandson to get her support, from the results, this choice was clearly the right one. At this moment, Yekora had long given up the idea of competing for the position of Kazekage, and said with a heartfelt smile on her face. Congratulations to you, Kazekage-sama. Although there was still a bit of awkwardness in it, everyone knew how difficult it was to get the proud Gaara to recognize Rasa's position as Kazekage. Mikawa also said, if the third Kazekage-sama were still alive, he would definitely be very happy to see this scene. This meant that Mikawa had completely acknowledged the death of the third Kazekage. From today onwards, the Sand lineage will fully support Rasa as Kazekage. Rasa didn't say much when he saw this, but thanked him very sincerely. Thank you. Just then, Maki walked in, his face flushed with excitement. Kazekage-sama, the celebration has begun. Rasa glanced at the 4 people in the office, his eyes serious, and said with unparalleled pride. Let's go, everyone, let's open a new era for Sunagakure village together. Wind Country, Hidden Sand Village. The lively sounds of firecrackers and gongs and drums echoed throughout the sky of the Hidden Sand Village. Accompanied by Rasa, wearing the Kazekage robe, appearing spiritedly on the 3rd-floor terrace of the Kazekage building. The dense crowd of Hidden Sand Village residents below immediately erupted in even more enthusiastic cheers. It's Lord Kazekage. Lord Kazekage is so handsome. Long live Lord Kazekage. Behind Rasa, Chiyo, Ebizo, Gaara, and Mikawa, who appeared with Rasa, were also filled with shock as they watched this scene and felt the villagers' support for Rasa. However, they didn't say much, because today there was only one protagonist here. That is, Rasa, who is the Kazekage. As Rasa took a few steps forward and raised his hand, making a gesture to quiet everyone down, the whole world became quiet, and everyone waited silently for Rasa to speak. From the moment I was born, I have been pondering a question: why? Why did the first Kazekage build our Hidden Sand Village in such a barren place? The yellow sand everywhere cannot grow any plants, and every day we have to face sandstorms and the scorching sun. Here, we lack everything needed for life: water, food, land, and the surrounding area is an endless devil's desert. Rasa's voice echoed in the ears of everyone present. Compared to our Hidden Sand Village, Konoha has fertile land and dense forests, Cloud Hidden Village has vast lakes and rivers, Mist Hidden Village is near the sea, and even the Rock Hidden Village, which is similar to us, although surrounded by high mountains, does not lack land and water for survival. But our Hidden Sand Village has nothing, only a desert with no hope and yellow sand full of death. But now, seeing you, seeing all the ninjas who fight for the village, I understand, because the first Kazekage saw the powerful will hidden in your bodies, tempered by the desert, and the endless potential cultivated by the harsh environment. From today onwards, we, the Hidden Sand Village, will show the entire ninja world the powerful strength contained in our hearts and bodies, and tell this ninja world that even in the barren desert, beautiful desert flowers can bloom. This is the sand will contained in the heart of every ninja in our Hidden Sand Village. And you, everyone here, will be the desert flowers of our Hidden Sand Village. Now, I announce that the Hidden Sand Village's Desert Flower Festival officially begins. Oh, long live Lord Kazekage. Long live the Sand Will. Instantly, cheers and applause resounded once again, and all kinds of firecrackers and gongs and drums plunged the Hidden Sand Village into a sea of joy. Only then did Rasa step back, and then he saw the 4 people behind him looking at him with bright eyes. Well said, Gaara said with a charming smile. Sand will. Interesting. Ebizo also nodded in agreement. Mikawa also nodded. These words should be remembered by all the children in the village. While feeling shy inside, Rasa also breathed a sigh of relief, feeling that his efforts in composing the speech these past few days were not in vain. Coming from Earth, he understood the importance of ideological construction very well. Konoha has the will of fire, Rock Hidden Village has the will of stone, and Cloud Hidden Village has the inherited title, A. Only Hidden Sand Village and Mist Hidden Village have nothing. However, from today onwards, Hidden Sand Village also has it. Unlike Konoha's will of fire, which is about self-sacrifice for generations, Rasa hopes that everyone in Hidden Sand Village can bloom with their own beautiful lives in the future, just like the flowers in the desert. Although the speech is over and the festival has begun, it does not mean that Rasa can rest. Next, he needs to visit the ninja school, hospital, and orphanage in his capacity as Kazekage, accompanied by Gaara and Mikawa. Chiyo and Ebizo went back to rest. The first stop is the Ninja Academy. Hidden Sand Village Ninja Academy. Because it was built by the first Kazekage imitating Konoha's Ninja Academy, its location is also in the very center of the village. That is, to the lower right of the Kazekage building. Because of its unique geographical environment, the Hidden Sand Village's Ninja Academy is more like a school in later generations. The buildings are all high-rise buildings built with stones and bricks, and in order to prevent the invasion of wind and sand, they are built like circular towers, and the entire building is surrounded by walls, with only rows of windows exposed. In the past, because of the elite education implemented by the Hidden Sand Village, the Hidden Sand Village's Ninja Academy was not large, only a 4-story building, but now another 6-story building stands next to it. In addition, the training ground for ninjas has become much larger, with various targets and ninja tools for training placed on it. The 600 children who have just entered this year and the more than 1,000 children in the previous 3 grades are all listening to the teacher's lectures in the classroom. The youngest are only 6 years old, and the oldest are already 11 or 12 years old. Judging from the expressions of both the students and the teachers, it can be seen that they are also very expectant and nervous at this time. When Rasa arrived here, it was no longer just Chiyo and the other 4. Karura, his wife, Shinga, his assistant, and Mishima, the Minister of Education, were also present. Although their status in the village is also very high, they cannot be compared with Chiyo and the other 4. Accompanied by Mishima, just like the leaders of the previous life inspecting, Rasa led everyone to inspect class by class. He would walk into each class and say a few words, passing on the sandwool that he had just composed. Come on, children, I hope you can uphold the sandwool and become the future desert flowers of our Hidden Sand Village. Yes, Lord Kazekage. The children's worldviews have not yet been formed, and after hearing Rasa's words, they were more excited than each other. The teachers also remembered Rasa's words, which will become their motto for teaching the children in the future. Rasa also chatted while walking. Shinga, I heard that you also let Sarah enroll. Shinga was stunned for a moment, and then nodded with a smile. Yes, she is in class 1. If it were before, Shinga, as a mother, would naturally not want her daughter to become a ninja, such a dangerous profession, but in the past month or so, as Shinga learned about the Hidden Sand Village as Rasa's assistant, she began to understand what the status of non-ninjas is in a ninja village. She even began to ask Karura for advice and learn ninjutsu herself. Soon, the group arrived at class 1. Rasa also saw Sarah, who had deep red hair and was sitting in the front row, and was very excited when she saw her mother. However, what surprised Rasa was another black-haired child sitting next to Sarah, with a serious face that did not match his age. Looking closely, he had an 80% resemblance to Mikawa. Rasa instantly understood something and became even happier. And just when Rasa thought that the surprise was over, the 3 children in the 3rd grade on the 2nd floor made Rasa feel that the efforts of this period of time were not in vain. Kunmi was sitting next to Sarah, only 6 years old, but with a serious expression like an adult, his face painted with red oil paint. From his appearance, which was very similar to Mikawa's, it was not difficult to guess that he was Mikawa's child. Logically speaking, as Mikawa's child, Kunmi would not need to attend the ninja school, because as a child of the Sand Clan, and the son of Mikawa, the education Kunmi could receive in the family was obviously higher than that of the ninja school, but Kunmi still appeared here, representing Mikawa's support for Rasa, the Kazekage. Obviously, Mikawa was giving his child a strict father's education. After seeing his father walk in, Kunmi's small face had been looking at his father with expectant eyes. It was a pity that Mikawa, as a father, did not respond in any way. Unlike Shinjo, who, seeing Sarah eagerly wanting to stand up, immediately gave her a stern warning look, and Sarah immediately sat back in her seat abashedly. It was at this time that Rasa noticed that the so-called class 1 was a true elite class. Because many of the children in this class were children of the village's high-ranking officials. Rasa did not show anything special, and as usual, said a few words to the children before leading everyone out of the classroom. When they were out of the classroom door and were about to go to the 2nd grade to take a look, Mikawa suddenly spoke. Kunmi's child has awakened magnet release. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. Shinjo did not understand what this represented, but the others here did. Kunmi is only 6 years old, right? Congratulations, Mikawa. The Sand Clan has produced another genius. Rasa said in congratulations. You should know that even Rasa, who is now the Kazekage, only awakened magnet release at the age of 7. It's just that I don't know why such a talented child didn't appear much in the plot. Could it be that he died halfway? Mikawa did not accept Rasa's congratulations, but said with a pleading look. I was also very surprised, so I want to ask Kazekage to take Kunmi as a disciple. As soon as these words came out, everyone looked sideways, and everyone's eyes turned to Rasa, and Shinjo even thought of something and his eyes moved. As for Rasa, he didn't ask anything. In fact, Mikawa's request for Rasa to take his child as a disciple at this time had already shown his attitude. No problem, let's do this. Now that it's the first grade, let him spend more time with his classmates and make some friends. Next year, I will officially accept Kunmi as a disciple. Thank you. Getting such a straightforward answer from Rasa. A rare smile appeared on Mikawa's face. He even looked at Rasa and Kurora very rarely and said, You and Kurora have to work hard too. A blush appeared on Kurora's face, but the smile on her face could not be stopped. Yakura and Shinjo both looked thoughtful, so the group continued on. To be honest, Rasa didn't have much hope for the future generation of Sunagakure. After all, it hasn't even been half a year since he traveled to the world of Naruto. How could it be possible to change the physique of the villagers of Sunagakure so quickly? It was already a pleasant surprise for him to encounter a little genius who awakened magnet release, but he didn't expect that when he came to the upper grades classroom, an even bigger surprise was waiting for him. Before Rasa reformed and expanded Sunagakure's ninja school, it had always adhered to a 4-year system of study. The first year is for learning cultural subjects, the second year is for extracting chakra plus cultural subjects, the third year is for starting to learn ninjutsu plus kunai, and the fourth year is for preparing for actual combat. After changing to a 6-year system, the things learned are still the same, except that the learning time is increased, with each of the second and third years being increased by 1 year. Therefore, students starting from the second grade are children who can use chakra and are considered half ninjas. Faced with such an opportunity to perform in front of Lord Kazekage today, neither the teachers nor the students of the ninja school wanted to miss it. Therefore, when Rasa went upstairs, he felt all kinds of chakra and combat lessons. Rasa understood the thoughts of these teachers and children, so he didn't say much. Instead, he had close contact with them and said some encouraging words, which earned him the excited and admiring gazes of the teachers and children. In this way, Rasa slowly came to the 3rd floor. Then, an abnormality suddenly came from his senses, causing him to stop abruptly. He did not go to the nearest classroom according to the established order, but directly skipped it and walked to the back of the corridor, which made everyone a little strange, but Rasa was the Kazekage, and no one here could say he was wrong. Rasa looked at the class number of the classroom, Class 6, 3rd grade. Looking at this class number, you can know that just like Class 1 is the elite class of the entire grade, Class 6 is definitely the bottom class of the 3rd grade. Mishima thought that it was the actions of some disobedient students in this class that made the Kazekage sense something and become a little angry, and asked nervously. What's wrong, Lord Kazekage? It's nothing. Rasa did not answer, but walked to the back of the classroom, looked inside, and then pointed to 3 children and asked. What are the names of those 3 children? Everyone followed Rasa's gaze and saw 3 little brats sitting in the middle row of the classroom, extracting chakra. They didn't look remarkable from the outside, and the chakra they extracted was pitifully small, belonging to the kind who would have trouble graduating in the future. Everyone couldn't understand why such 3 children would attract Rasa's attention. Regarding Rasa's question, Mishima's expression was a little embarrassed. Although Mishima was the Minister of Education, how could he know all the children, especially since this was the bottom class? Just as he was in trouble, Kurora next to Rasa said. They are Mori, Angie, and Ro. What's wrong, Rasa-kun? Shinjo also remembered something and said, it's those 3 kids. This made Rasa a little curious and asked, how do you all know these 3 children? Kurora explained, these 3 children are Senri's children. Rasa also remembered at once that Senri was Kurora's comrade when she was still a genin. It was a pity that Kurora's talent quickly made her a chunin and their team disbanded. However, as comrades, Kurora and Senri still had a good relationship. However, this doesn't seem to explain why Rasa actually sensed sage art energy from these three children. Yes, although weak, he did indeed sense the existence of sage art energy from these three children. This was the first time he had encountered such a thing. Could it be that the improvement of the physical fitness of Sanagakure villagers by sage art energy has already yielded results so quickly? But why is it these three children? If he could find out how these three children possess sage art energy, perhaps he could completely change Sanagakure. Just when Rasa was curious, Kurora and Shinjo's narration suddenly made Rasa understand the possible reason. Kurora and Shinjo told Rasa about the time when the two of them saw small grasses growing out of the well house under the leadership of these three children. Kurora also said with a smile, "After hearing my words, these three little guys reportedly took protecting those magical little grasses as their own task. Whenever they have time, they patrol the various well houses, just like little adults. Many people in the village have seen them." Rasa seemed to understand why these three children were so special. Their bodies actually contained sage art energy. However, this made him even more curious. Was it because these children were frequently exposed to sage art energy, or was it a gift from this protective behavior? If it was the former, it would be a good thing, meaning that as the sage art energy in this world became stronger and stronger, the Sand Village, as the origin, would definitely be the first to benefit, awakening more ninjas influenced by sage art energy. But if it was the latter, it would be a bit troublesome. Thinking of this, Rasa looked at Shinga. If it was the former, Shinga, who was born with the ability to use Dragon Vein chakra, should also have sage art energy in his body, since all the current sage art energy is converted from Dragon Vein chakra. "I heard that you are also learning ninjutsu now, Shinga?" Rasa's sudden change of topic surprised everyone, and Shinga felt a little embarrassed, as if he had been caught secretly learning. "Yes, at least it makes it easier to move around." Rasa nodded, then dropped the topic and said to Masaki, "For children like these, it's a waste of time to have them learn ninjutsu. From today on, shift their studies to taijutsu. I obtained a secret taijutsu technique from Konoha, and after I improve it, I'll give it to them." Masaki immediately said happily, "That's great, Lord Kazekage. I thank you on behalf of these children." "Yes. Let's continue." As expected, surprises don't come often. The other children at the Ninja Academy seemed ordinary. There was nothing else that caught Rasa's attention. The next stop was the Sand Village Ninja Hospital. Here, Rasa met his brother-in-law, Yakumo, and the head of the medical department, Iris. Yakumo's presence here was at Iris's request. Because of the current decline in talent in the Sand Village, the Sand Village Ninja Hospital couldn't find any high-level medical ninjas who could hold their own, so Rasa had to temporarily send Yakumo here. However, that wouldn't be necessary soon. "Yakumo, have you ever thought about taking a disciple?" A look of dazedness appeared on Yakumo's gentle face, and then he nodded and said, "If it's me, of course, there's no problem, but, am I good enough?" "Of course, you are. You're a jonin in the village, and it's time for you to take a few disciples and contribute to the future of the village." Yes. Seeing that her husband and brother had such a good relationship, Kurora was naturally very happy. Then, after roughly touring the newly expanded ninja hospital, they arrived at the third stop, the orphanage. Unlike the Ninja Academy and the Ninja Hospital, which were located in the center of the village, the orphanage was newly built and located in the southeast corner of the village, where there was more vacant land, so the orphanage was built very large. The overall architectural style was still the closed type of the Sand Village. When Rasa arrived, the head of the logistics department, Ryuji, was also waiting here. Because the orphanage was newly established, it was still empty and didn't have many children. Ryuji also shared his thoughts. Reporting to Lord Kazekage, "I will have people in the village pay attention to orphans in the Land of Wind and other small countries who have lost their parents due to war, so that the number of children here will gradually increase. Yes, just tell me if you have any difficulties." As soon as Rasa finished speaking, Ryuji immediately seized the opportunity. Reporting to Lord Kazekage, there is indeed a slight difficulty. As he said this, Ryuji looked at Karura behind Rasa, with a somewhat embarrassed expression on his face. I have a rather presumptuous request. I wonder if it would be possible to have Lady Karura become the director of the orphanage. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked, and Karura covered her small mouth in disbelief. Of course, this wasn't Ryuji's own idea, but something that Rasa had intentionally or unintentionally revealed. Oh, tell me your thoughts. Ryuji also knew what to do. Reporting to Lord Kazekage, Lady Karura, the orphanage is different from other places. All the children here have lost their parents, and their hearts are very sensitive. They need a gentle director like Lady Karura to take care of them. Rasa nodded and turned to look at Karura. What's your opinion, Karura? Am I good enough? Karura said hesitantly. Shinga, who had already seen through Rasa's thoughts, immediately chimed in. Of course, you are. You're so gentle, Karura, you'll definitely be able to take good care of these children. Karura looked at her husband's encouraging gaze and nodded, saying. Then I'll give it a try. Yes, then Ryuji, you and Karura can discuss the handover. I will issue the order tomorrow. Yes. Just then, suddenly, Rasa's gaze swept over something, and his footsteps stopped once again. This familiar action made everyone subconsciously follow Rasa's gaze, and then they saw a woman with golden hair, wearing a nun's habit, taking care of the few children in the orphanage. The radiant, sun-like smile and the beautiful and generous face gave everyone present, even the women, a sense of closeness. As if sensing everyone's gaze, the woman also looked over and nodded at everyone with a smile on her face. Seeing this, Ryuji directly summoned the woman in front of Rasa and the others. Lord Kazekage, this is Ms. Nanoyu, from our land of wind. She is a very experienced orphanage director. After hearing about her, I invited her to help take care of the children in the orphanage. Greetings, Lord Kazekage. The woman named Nanoyu looked at Rasa, who had appeared before her, and greeted him very calmly, as if Rasa was just an ordinary person. Yes. Although Rasa was a little surprised, he didn't show the slightest hint of abnormality on his face. Instead, he said gratefully. Thank you, Ms. Nanoyu. I'll have to trouble you to take care of these children in the future. With a professional like you, I'm much more confident in the future of our Sand Village orphanage. This is what I should do. Nanoyu nodded gently. Then, I won't disturb you any further. Then came the last itinerary. Accompanied by Shinga, they inspected the area where the people of Loran lived. Unfortunately, no more surprises appeared. At this point, all of Rasa's itinerary as Kazekage for the day was over, so he took everyone back to the Kazekage building. However, along the way, everyone could feel that something was wrong with Rasa, as if he was constantly thinking about something. After returning to the Kazekage's office, Yekora asked with some inexplicable agitation. What is it, Lord Kazekage? Can't you still forget about that Ms. Nanoyu? These words made the faces of the women in the office a little strange. As a man, Mikawa nodded and said. That Ms. Nanoyu is indeed very beautiful. Because he had to admit that the gentle, maternal aura exuded by that Ms. Nanoyu was indeed very attractive to men. These words made Karura, who hadn't originally thought that Rasa would have such thoughts, instantly widen her cute eyes and look at her husband. Shinga, on the other hand, had a slightly disdainful look in his eyes. As expected, all men are the same. This inexplicable blame made Rasa feel a little baffled. However, he didn't care. Seeing that everyone here was his own people, he thought for a moment and said. No, what I'm thinking about is something else, and that is that Ms. Nanoyu is actually from Konoha. The moment Rasa spoke, everyone present was first shocked, then filled with surprise and anger. They did not doubt the truth of Rasa's words. Bang! Yi Kang directly slapped the armrest of the chair and roared. Konoha really doesn't learn its lesson. It clearly just suffered such a great loss, and now it dares to provoke our Sand Village again. Rasa shook his head and said. It's not necessarily Konoha's intention, because this Ms. Nanoyu belongs to Konoha's root. Root, Danzo. Everyone was shocked, and then Miyakawa remembered something and said. I heard that this elder of Konoha was seriously injured by you, Kazekage, and is in critical condition. He hasn't woken up until now, but looking at it now, that's fake. It's just an excuse for him to escape accountability. That should be the case. Rasa nodded, while Yi Kang said with some displeasure. If I had known, you should have just taken care of him directly. It's disgusting to have such a bug staring at us all the time. Regarding this reason, I have already explained it to you. Rather than killing Danzo, letting him go is the best choice. You have already received Konoha's intelligence. Even though Konoha suffered such a major loss because of him, and the Uchiha clan is about to turn the world upside down, the elders of Konoha and the third Hokage still chose to indulge their friend. Such a ticking time bomb is certainly better alive than dead. Mikawa also nodded in agreement. Indeed, Kazekage, your approach is correct. Now it seems that the internal conflicts in Konoha are more serious than we imagined. However, it's a pity that even so, Konoha still withstood the attacks of Iwagakure and Kumogakure. It can only be said that Konoha's foundation is truly terrifying. Hearing this, Rasa also felt somewhat helpless. Since the Sand Village annihilated Konoha's forces in the Land of Rivers a week ago, Kumogakure and Iwagakure immediately launched a large-scale attack on Konoha, preparing to defeat Konoha in one fell swoop. Originally, no matter how you looked at it, Konoha was bound to lose this time. But unexpectedly, Minato Namikaze, the old opponent of everyone in the Sand Village, suddenly seemed to have activated a cheat, using the Flying Thunder God technique to support both fronts. Not only did he defeat the AB combination of Kumogakure and block Kumogakure's attack, but also on the battlefield of Iwagakure, he fought against 100 enemies alone, making Iwagakure afraid to advance any further, completely making a name for himself in the ninja world. Yi Kang obviously also knew this information. As someone who had fought against Minato before, she was also somewhat unwilling. How did that guy do it? This strengthening is too unreasonable. He wasn't this exaggerated more than a month ago. Although she also felt that she was very strong now, it was impossible for her to do these things. Not to mention the AB combination of Kumogakure, she couldn't even fight against 100 enemies from Iwagakure. Because according to the information, the 100 ninjas of Iwagakure were not ordinary ninjas but all Jonin. When she fought a month ago, she didn't think this guy was so perverted. Rasa also felt a headache at this time, and could only say that he deserved to be the protagonist of this world, and his growth was really unreasonable. Fortunately, he was also happy to see this situation. Because first of all, he didn't really have the idea of destroying Konoha. Not to mention whether he could do it, even if he could, he wouldn't do it, because he still needed the two protagonists from Konoha to withstand Kagaya Otsutsuki in the future. Secondly, the huge pressure from the outside can also unite the Sand Village internally. At this time, Miyakawa added fuel to the fire and said. According to the information, Minato Namikaze has not yet used Sage Mode. Now, Yi Kang's expression became even more ugly. The atmosphere in the Kazecage's office became low once again. Except for Shinga, who didn't know much about the strength of ninjas, Yi Kang, Miyakawa, and Karura all looked somewhat gloomy. Fortunately, Rasa spoke at this time. Don't be so downcast. Shinga, please extract chakra for me to see. Hearing the topic suddenly shift to her, Shinga was suddenly stunned. The eyes of the other three also looked over strangely, but Shinga still obediently put her hands together and began to extract chakra. As expected, as soon as Shinga extracted chakra, Rasa immediately felt the senjutsu energy in Shinga's chakra, and it was higher than the concentration of those three little ghosts. In this way, Shinga's daughter Sarah might also have such potential. Alright, that's enough. Shinga's entire chakra extraction time was less than a minute. Hearing Rasa tell her to stop, she immediately stopped and looked at Rasa curiously. What exactly is going on? Of course, the others present could not feel the existence of senjutsu energy, so Yi Kang looked confused. Rasa said half-truthfully, do you still remember the dragon vein chakra of Roron that I told you about last time? It's not surprising that Shinga, as the former queen of Roron, has the ability to absorb dragon vein chakra, but what about those three children? Karura didn't know about the existence of dragon vein chakra, but Yi Kang and Miyakawa were different. They knew what it was. That represents the natural energy of senjutsu. Therefore, when Rasa spoke, they understood. Yi Kang said impatiently. Are you saying that those 3 little ghosts also have dragon vein chakra in their bodies? Yes, this is good news. Although I also find it a bit strange how those 3 children did it, it represents that we see the hope of mastering this natural energy. Yi Kang and Miyakawa's eyes also lit up. However, you still need to wait. I need to observe those 3 little ghosts and study them. Okay. The two also knew that this matter could not be rushed. Just then, Yi Kang suddenly reacted and asked. We can't sense this chakra, but you can, Rasa. Does this mean that you have already mastered this power? Rasa didn't hide it. That's right, but my ability to master it doesn't mean you can. It can only be said that it represents a hope. Yi Kang only had envy in her mouth when she saw Rasa's direct admission. No wonder we can't sense the chakra on your body. This can be regarded as answering the doubts in the hearts of the people present. Seeing this, Rasa also talked about another matter. Although we can't celebrate this victory in a big way this time in order not to stimulate other countries, I have already asked the Anbu to prepare the rewards for the ninjas in the village who participated in this operation. In a few days, Maki will give it to you. Besides, Rasa took out a scroll and placed it on the table. This is a summoning scroll that I got from Danzo. It's a summoning beast called Dream Taper that can use wind release, but unfortunately there is only one. Which of you two wants it? Yi Kang's eyes immediately turned fiery. She had vivid memories of Konoha's summoning beasts. Since it could become a Konoha Elder's summoning beast, it shouldn't be weak. Mi Chuan, on the other hand, seemed calmer. Give it to Yi Kang. I already have a summoning beast. Luo Sha also knew about Mi Chuan's summoning beast, which was the side weasel, the summoning beast of Luo Sha's eldest daughter, Temari, in the later plot. Although its size was much smaller, it could greatly enhance the power of wind release over a wide area. More importantly, there wasn't just one side weasel, but a whole race. Of course, in terms of power, it definitely couldn't compare with these summoning beasts from the sacred land. It was only an auxiliary, but it was already very rare for Sand Village. Seeing this, Luo Sha nodded in satisfaction and threw the summoning beast scroll to Yi Kang. This kind of internal unity in the village also made him very happy. Thank you. Yi Kang also gave Mi Chuan a grateful look. The two factions that had always been opposed to each other in the village, at this moment, the relationship between their controllers was so harmonious. Seeing this, Luo Sha took out 2 more scrolls. This is another kind of Konoha forbidden technique that I got from Danzo, called the 8 Gates formation. It was developed by Konoha's second Hokage. It can temporarily obtain powerful power by unlocking the channels in the human body that bind chakra. It is said that opening all 8 gates can instantly obtain dozens of times the power. Dozens of times. This number startled both Yi Kang and Mi Chuan. Yi Kang's eyes became even more fiery, and even the summoning beast scroll in her hand didn't seem as attractive as before. Of course, this forbidden technique also has a great burden. Opening all 8 gates is almost a dead end. However, just opening the first few gates shouldn't be a problem with your physical fitness, and you can also improve your taijutsu by the way. With Yi Kang and Mi Chuan's current strength, it was almost impossible to suddenly have a qualitative leap like Bo Feng Shui Men, so Luo Sha could only think of ways to give them a cheat. The 8 gates formation was definitely one of the best choices, safe and reliable, and even he himself had to practice it. The two took the scrolls and looked at Luo Sha with enthusiastic eyes. It could only be said that since Luo Sha became Kazekage, he had been too generous to the two of them, almost without any reservations. This kind of generosity made the two of them feel a little ashamed when they thought of their previous actions. At this time, Mi Chuan also suddenly took out a prepared scroll and handed it to Luo Sha. Luo Sha didn't expect to receive a return gift. What is this? Mi Chuan said, falling into memory. Actually, regarding summoning beasts, the third Hokage also conducted an investigation. Although he didn't find any Raichi cave in the end, he did hear about a place where there used to be a large snake named Shinya. Perhaps it will be helpful to you. Luo Sha's eyes lit up instantly. This was definitely an unexpected surprise. Although Luo Sha didn't know as much about the plot of Boruto as he did about Shippuden, he still knew the name of Shinya, this red giant python. This was a very powerful snake in Raichi Cave. He formed a secret mobile unit, sending out 4 Jonin, just to find the traces of Raichi Cave. Because finding Raichi Cave also meant finding Jugo. He just didn't expect that the secret mobile unit had been searching for so long without any news, but Mi Chuan had gained something instead. Thank you, this is indeed very important to me. Seeing this, Yi Kang was a little embarrassed, because she found that she didn't seem to have anything to give Luo Sha in return. Fortunately, Mi Chuan changed the subject. Then how should we deal with this spy named Nanoyu? Luo Sha thought for a while and made a decision. Let her go for now. This surprised everyone present, especially Yi Kang, whose expression became strange. However, Luo Sha's next words made her feel a little ashamed for the messy thoughts in her mind. Luo Sha knocked on the table and said slowly. Actually, from the beginning to now, the reason why I target Konoha so much is not because I have any unresolved hatred for Konoha, but simply because of different positions. On the contrary, I also admire some of Konoha's ninjas very much, just like this woman named Nanoyu. Although she is a root spy, from the information I have learned, she is indeed a very kind woman. The eyes of everyone present turned to Luo Sha and became a little admiring. As his wife, Jaluoluo only felt that her husband was very charming at this moment, exuding an indescribable masculine charm. Luo Sha didn't pay attention to these, and said, looking at his wife. Jaluoluo, I'll leave Nanoyu to you. You can try to turn her into one of our Sand Village people if possible. Okay. Jaluoluo nodded heavily. Thank you for your hard work. That's all I have to say. Next, I'm going to Elder Chio's place. Do you have anything else to say? Everyone shook their heads, but Shen Gong asked curiously. Lord Kazekage, do you need me to follow you? No need. Next, you can help Jaluoluo sort out the affairs of the orphanage. Okay. After Luo Sha left the Kazekage building, he came to the place where Chio and Ebizo lived alone. Unlike the high-rise buildings in other sand villages, the place where the two lived was a separate small courtyard, with a style somewhat similar to Konoha. The location was also relatively remote, and no one dared to approach here. In the past, this place was also full of yellow sand, filled with earth yellow, but recently, some green plants have grown, making this place much more colorful. As soon as Luo Sha entered here, he could see Elder Ebizo teaching a red-haired girl to practice. Seeing Luo Sha's arrival, both of them stopped their movements. The girl saluted uneasily and said, Greetings, Lord Kazekage. This girl was naturally Washu. After he brought Whirlpool Washu back from Grass Village, he arranged for her to be here. The reason was very simple. Luo Sha nodded. Elder Ebizo, how is Washu's talent in sealing techniques? This was Luo Sha's real purpose, to train Washu to become Ebizo's successor. It was just a pity that after asking, he learned that although Washu was a member of the Whirlpool clan, she did not master the sealing techniques of the Whirlpool clan like Jushinai, so he could only let her follow Ebizo to learn, so as not to waste her talent. Ebizo naturally understood Luo Sha's meaning, and he did not resist, but consciously accepted Luo Sha's arrangement. Because, whether it was him or his sister, they had seen something different from Luo Sha. They were both old people who had lived from the time of the first Hokage, but in these 40 years, they had seen such a sand village for the first time. They could not describe the feeling in their hearts at this time, but if they had to give a descriptive word, it would be like the green miracle that suddenly appeared in this village. As expected of the orphan of the Whirlpool clan, Washu is very talented in sealing techniques, but Ebizo hesitated here, which made Luo Sha a little puzzled. But what? It was Chio who walked out of the house who answered him. Compared to sealing techniques, this little ghost's talent in medical ninjutsu is even more amazing. If you hand her over to me, I can train her to be a medical ninja no weaker than Tsunade. Clearly, Hanataba seemed somewhat afraid of Elder Chio. Seeing Chio walk out, she immediately became even more nervous. Rasa didn't expect Chio to come out and try to snatch a disciple. However, this didn't affect his plans. I didn't expect that Elder Chio would want to take Hanataba as a disciple. I was originally planning to entrust the task of teaching Hanataba medical ninjutsu to Yakushimaru. Upon hearing this, Chio didn't hide the disdain in her eyes as she said. Don't joke around. Although Yakushimaru has some talent in medical ninjutsu and can be considered top-notch in our Sunagaku, he's still far from this little girl. Letting Yakushimaru teach her would be misleading her. Is that so? I understand. In that case, wouldn't it be fine to have Hanataba become a disciple of both Elder Chiyo and Elder Ebizo? Unexpectedly, Elder Chiyo immediately became serious and said, "What do you think medical ninjutsu is? A person's energy is inherently limited. If you truly want to become an outstanding medical ninja like Tsunade, you absolutely cannot be distracted." This was beyond Rasa's expectations and somewhat inconsistent with his initial thoughts. However, what Chiyo said made sense. Medical ninjutsu should be the most technologically advanced and commonly used profession in the Naruto world. Although sealing techniques are also important, they seem less commonly used than medical ninjutsu. Rasa would indeed need an excellent medical ninja to help him in the future. Rasa thought for a moment and then looked down at the somewhat nervous Hanataba and asked, "Hanataba, do you want to become a medical ninja by becoming a disciple of Elder Chiyo, or a sealing technique ninja by becoming a disciple of Elder Ebizo?" As soon as Rasa finished speaking, he could clearly feel that Hanataba seemed somewhat resistant to becoming a sealing technique ninja, but also seemed somewhat afraid of Chiyo, and didn't know how to choose for a moment. Although Rasa was surprised that Hanataba, as a member of the Uzumaki clan, didn't want to become a ninja who mastered sealing techniques, he still thought about it and said with a smile, "Don't be nervous. Don't look at Elder Chiyo being so serious, but she's actually a very gentle old woman." Although he said that, Chiyo still had that stinky face of hers, making Hanataba feel a little nervous. However, Hanataba was indeed somewhat resistant to sealing techniques in her heart. With Rasa's encouragement, she still made her own choice. "I choose to become a medical ninja by becoming a disciple of Elder Chiyo." "Okay. Since you've made your choice, then I respect you." Seeing that Hanataba had finally made up her mind and chosen the path of a medical ninja, Rasa nodded in satisfaction. Looking at Chiyo, who still had a cold face, he thought for a moment and said, "However, teacher, is too formal. Hanataba, from now on, you can call Elder Chiyo, Grandma Chiyo." At this moment, both Chiyo and Ebizo's expressions changed slightly. Hanataba naturally felt it too, but she naturally didn't understand the reason and obediently called out, "Grandma Chiyo." Chiyo's body trembled slightly. She looked at the nervous little girl in front of her, as if she saw the shadow of that child. The same red hair, the same youthfulness, the same loss of parents. Was this God compensating her? However, in just an instant, Chiyo's eyes returned to calmness, but the tone of her voice had already become much softer as she said, "The training of medical ninjutsu is very hard. You have to be prepared." I will work hard. Yes." Seeing this scene, Ebizo's eyes were also slightly moist. He knew that although his sister still hadn't come out of it, at least she saw a glimmer of hope, didn't she? He looked at Rasa with some gratitude. "Thank you." Saying that, he looked at Hanataba and said, "I thought you, Kazekage, were going to train this child as a Jinchuriki." As soon as these words came out, Rasa immediately understood why Hanataba was resistant to sealing techniques. Sure enough, Hanataba became nervous upon hearing this. Seeing this, Rasa knew that this was an opportunity to express his thoughts, so he took the opportunity to say, "In the future, I don't plan to continue creating Jinchuriki." As soon as these words came out, Chiyo and Ebizo were both shocked. Rasa explained, "Although the power of the tailed beasts is indeed strong, firstly, the current village doesn't need the power of the tailed beasts so urgently, and secondly, the process of creating a Jinchuriki is too dangerous and painful for the Jinchuriki. As the Kazekage of the village, I will not let children take such risks." Of course, the most important thing was that the current Rasa didn't care about Shukaku's power at all. If it was Kurama, it would be different. But the three people present didn't know. Chiyo and Ebizo immediately looked at Rasa with admiration after their initial surprise. Hanataba's eyes were full of admiration. "Kazekage, you are indeed different from the previous generations. We can rest assured that the village is in your hands," Ebizo said with emotion. Chiyo then asked curiously, "How is Fukai now? I have arranged a place for him. He is eating well and drinking well now. I feel that it's no problem for him to live for another 10 years or so. If the two elders want to see him, I can bring him back. No need. I'm very relieved that Fukai is with you. To be honest, the two of us owe Fukai a lot and don't have the face to see him. After saying that, Chiyo also knew Rasa's true purpose for coming here and said, "Come with me, Hanataba, follow along." Yes. Dash 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 dash. Inside the dim laboratory, various instruments were placed, and in the bubbling test tubes, 5 Sharingan eyes and a white arm floated. Hanataba, who followed in, saw this creepy scene for the first time. Chiyo didn't waste any time and said directly, "I have to say, these things you brought are really incredible. Mangekyo Sharingan, cells of the first Hokage, these are treasures that this old woman never dared to imagine before. Moreover, these things have their own characteristics, making my research very smooth. Any gains?" I made a comparison. Through this blind Sharingan eye, the normal Sharingan eye, and the power remaining in the Mangekyo Sharingan, I have confirmed that the so-called dojutsu power does exist. Unfortunately, Hashirama Senju's cells have lost their vitality. However, at your suggestion, I studied Hanataba's Uzumaki clan cells and found that the power of the Uzumaki clan does have a very strange effect on the dojutsu power of the Sharingan. Hanataba was stunned. Her cells were researched. When did that happen? Suddenly, she also remembered that she had just arrived here and had a tube of blood drawn. Then, is my idea feasible? Chiyo shook her head very cautiously. It's not certain yet. I need more time to study. Understood. Then, thank you for your hard work. After Rasa finished speaking, he looked at Hanataba and asked, "In these days, have you sensed that strange chakra approaching here, or entering the village?" Hanataba naturally knew what Rasa was talking about and shook her head and said, "No." Seeing this, Rasa looked at Hanataba, who was still a little nervous, thought for a moment, and comforted her. "Don't be nervous. Sunagakure will be your home from now on. I swear in the name of the Kazekage that I will not do anything against your will. If I break my promise that day, you can ask Grandma Chiyo to teach me a lesson." Chiyo gave him a lot of face and said, "Don't worry, I definitely won't show any mercy at that time." Hanataba's nervous expression finally completely relaxed upon hearing this, and she nodded obediently. With Shinga as his assistant, handling most of the major matters that required his attention, Rosha could safely return to the Dragon's Oasis to continue his training, without wasting energy on more trivial matters. It could only be said that Rosha was indeed lucky to have obtained the 8 gates formation technique from Danzo. He was originally thinking that he lacked a cultivation method to increase the storage limit of natural energy in his body, and the 8 gates formation technique was automatically delivered to his door. Of course, Rosha couldn't just cultivate the 8 gates formation technique by rote. By studying the scroll that Danzo had sent, Rosha roughly understood the essence of the 8 gates formation technique. According to the scroll, when chakra flows through a person's body meridians, it passes through 8 very important acupoints, from top to bottom, which are the opening gate, the healing gate, the life gate, the injury gate, the forest gate, the view gate, the wonder gate, and the death gate. Each time a gate is opened, the chakra in the ninja's body will surge by at least 1-fold, and the power of the chakra will bring about an increase in physical strength, bringing the ninja greater power and faster speed. This seemed exactly the same as the star release chakra mode, a way to expend the body's potential to unleash powerful strength, but in reality, the two were completely different in nature. If the chakra in a ninja's body had an upper limit, then, the star release chakra mode stimulates the cells of the human body to produce more chakra to increase this upper limit, while the 8 gates formation technique improves the utilization rate of chakra in the human body. Yes, the utilization rate. According to the description on the 8 gates formation technique scroll, if the chakra in a ninja's body is likened to a river, then, these 8 gates are 8 dams set up on the river channel, limiting the flow of water in the downstream river channel. If a person's chakra is 100, then every time it flows through a gate, the amount of chakra will decrease sharply by at least half, which is a protective measure set up by the body to protect various organs and prevent them from bearing the burden of a large amount of chakra flow. The foundation of the 8 gates formation technique is to allow the body's meridians and various organs to withstand this burden through arduous cultivation. Conversely, every time a ninja opens a gate, the amount of chakra in his body will increase by at least onefold. In fact, looking at it this way, cultivating the 8 gates formation technique doesn't improve Rosha much, because the 8 gates formation technique only releases the chakra that is restricted by the existence of the 8 gates in the body, and doesn't really improve the upper limit of chakra in the human body. And Rosha currently has no chakra in his body. But conversely, when Rosha is now absorbing natural energy, he is also following the chakra meridian system. This means that opening these 8 gates can speed up his efficiency in absorbing natural energy. Secondly, in the 8 gates formation technique, those cultivation methods that improve the ability of the meridians and various organs to withstand greater burdens through professional cultivation also indirectly improve his physical fitness and increase his chakra storage limit. Of course, these are all theoretical things that Rosha has come up with based on the 8 gates formation technique, and what needs to be done next is to verify them. Just as Rosha was starting to cultivate the 8 gates formation technique in the Dragon's Oasis, while the outside ninja world was fighting fiercely, the sand-hidden village was ushering in a thriving scene of development. First of all, the 2 victories against Konoha, especially the second one, greatly enhanced the sand-hidden village's position in the entire ninja world, allowing the sand-hidden village to instantly rise from the bottom of the 5 great ninja villages to a position on par with the cloud-hidden village and the rock-hidden village. The first benefit of this was that there were more people issuing missions to the sand-hidden village. Secondly, there were also more civilians who wanted to settle in the sand-hidden village. After all, the ninja world is so dangerous now, and it is not easy to find a safe place to live. From the current point of view, the sand-hidden village is indeed a good choice. Although the environment is a bit harsh, at least it is safe. This brought about a rapid increase in the wealth and population of the sand-hidden village. In order to screen the origins of these people who came to settle down, the ninjas in the village have been working day and night recently. The increase in population and wealth has brought about a wave of production and construction frenzy within the sand-hidden village. After all, when people come, they always need a place to live, and they also need to buy all kinds of daily necessities. Food, clothing, housing, and transportation are indispensable. This brought about many job opportunities. Secondly, because of these 2 wars, the ninjas in the village have money, and the improvement of welfare has also made many villagers' pockets bulge, and if they have money, they naturally want to spend it. Therefore, the dual stimulus of external and internal factors has brought about the rapid economic development of the sand-hidden village. Every day, there are various caravans from all over the world crossing the desert to the sand-hidden village. And after these people came, they found that the environment of the sand-hidden village did not seem as harsh as the outside world rumored. After the entire village developed very prosperously, they spread all this news to the outside world, which made many people yearn for the sand-hidden village even more. This brought about a very virtuous internal cycle. The local villagers of the sand-hidden village vowed that they had never seen such a lively village. Although this brought about certain risks, that is, the entry of spies from other countries, compared with the risks brought about by spies, the prosperous development of the village is what they are more happy to see. After all, this represents a lot of wealth. Time slowly passed for a month. In this month, the ninjas of the sand-hidden village can be said to be suffering and happy. Although they are really very hard, but seeing the village developing better and better under the leadership of the Kazekage, their hearts are also more and more joyful. Of course, in order to make up for the lack of chunin in the village, some older genin were specially approved to become chunin, which is also one of the reasons why these ninjas are happy. Although these genin have poor combat effectiveness, their years of experience allow them to be competent in some work to maintain internal security in the village and maintain the internal operation of the village. However, soon, they also discovered a problem. That is, if the population continues to grow at this rate, I am afraid that in less than a year, the houses and land in the sand-hidden village will not be enough. This has caused some high-level officials in some villages to start raising some objections, thinking that some restrictions need to be placed on outsiders. After all, the Sand-Hidden Village is a ninja village, and too many foreign populations will obviously affect the internal stability of the village, but after Shinga told Rosha all this, Rosha's answer was very simple. Don't worry about them, the core of the village is always the ninjas. As long as there are no major changes in the ninja group, these are not problems. As for the problems of houses and land, I will solve them at that time. With Rosha's current prestige in the village, no one dares to disobey his orders, at most they will say a few words behind his back. As the Kazekage of the Sand-Hidden Village, after more than a month of hard training, Rosha has finally cultivated the 8 gates formation technique to the 4th gate, the injury gate, and the result of the cultivation is gratifying to him. He feels that he has finally crossed the level of Kage and entered the level of Super Kage. Dragon's Oasis. Beneath the massive divine tree, Rosha, like Buddha under the Bodhi tree, was cultivating with his eyes closed. Visibly, his body was like a Super Saiyan, with green energy swirling around him, causing his hair to float upwards. However, unlike the surging feeling when Little Lee and Kai opened the gates in the storyline, the aura around him was very peaceful. The reason is simple. Although Rosha is indeed practicing the 8 inner gates formation, he is not using the arduous training methods of Little Lee and Kai. Rosha is now taking a shortcut. The reason why the 8 inner gates formation requires such harsh, self-abusive training methods is to ensure that the body, after undergoing rigorous training, can withstand the side effects of opening the 8 gates. But Rosha is different. He is not worried about the damage to his body from chakra when opening the 8 gates. Firstly, there is no chakra in his body, and secondly, Sage Art energy possesses super strong vitality and can heal injuries. Therefore, Rosha, like some protagonists in martial arts novels, began to reverse engineer the martial arts manual. Yes, Rosha is now reverse training the 8 inner gates formation. He did not make preliminary training preparations for opening the 8 gates, but directly began to slowly try to open them. Anyway, even if his body is damaged, Sage Art energy will automatically repair it. And in the process of repairing, his body and meridians will gradually become stronger. Of course, he didn't impulsively start with everything all at once, but tried it little by little. Even so, this cheating training method, coupled with Rosha's own powerful body as a cage, allowed him to cultivate to the state of opening the 4th gate, the Gate of Pain, in just 1 month. More importantly, this training method, like a Super Saiyan in a normal state in Dragon Ball, allows the state of opening the 4 gates to become the norm. This allowed Rosha to directly step into the Super Kage level from the Kage level. What is a Kage? In Rosha's view, a ninja is someone who uses chakra as a source of power and fights using ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu. And a Kage. From the literal meaning, the so-called Kage represents the leaders of the 5 great ninja villages. From a strength perspective, it means that chakra, ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu have all reached the peak that ordinary ninjas can achieve, with no obvious weaknesses. For example, the 5 Kage of the 5 great nations are all within the Kage level. In terms of chakra, ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu, there are almost no shortcomings. Taking Rosha as an example, he can use large-scale magnet release, so his chakra reserves are undoubtedly vast. In terms of ninjutsu, in addition to ordinary 5 elements ninjutsu, his bloodline limit, magnet release, is also top-notch. In terms of taijutsu, although he is somewhat weak, that is only in comparison to top experts like Flying Thunder God technique users and Jiraiya. As for genjutsu, with his powerful chakra, he can also resist most genjutsu. So what is a Super Kage? It means that in terms of chakra, ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu, on the basis of reaching the Kage level, 1 or more abilities surpass the human realm. For example, Minato Namikaze, his current Flying Thunder God technique and Rasengan allow him to reach the Super Kage level in terms of ninjutsu and taijutsu. And when he masters Sage Art in Nine Tails mode, his ninjutsu and chakra will reach the peak of the Super Kage level, even touching the 6 Paths level. And now Rosha has finally stepped into the Super Kage level. First of all, in terms of chakra, in the state of constantly opening the 4 gates, the sage art energy stored in his body can reach 4 times the original amount. This ratio is terrifying because the high efficiency of sage art energy allows him to consume much less sage art energy when using techniques compared to ordinary chakra. Secondly, in terms of ninjutsu, sage art limit, magnet released sand control, plus the sage art limit, would release he obtained by absorbing Hashirama cells, allows his ninjutsu to reach the super kage level. At the same time, wood release makes up for the rain that suppresses his techniques during rain weather. Finally, in terms of taijutsu, Rosha has now entered an extremely strong realm due to practicing the 8 inner gates formation. Because in the 8 inner gates formation, each gate opened enhances taijutsu. First is the first gate, the gate of opening, which is located in the brain. Opening the gate of opening can remove the brain's limitations, allowing Rosha to have faster reaction speed and information capture ability in battle. The second gate, the gate of healing, is also located in the brain. It can remove the body's fatigue limitations, allowing Rosha to have stronger stamina in battle while also increasing the body's recovery speed, allowing Rosha to fight more persistently. The third gate, the gate of life, is located in the chest and can be said to be the center connecting the 8 gates of the body. Therefore, it is called the last safe zone of the 8 inner gates formation. Opening it will greatly enhance the body's various strengths, including strength, speed, and reaction ability, which also represents the limit that the human body can reach. And the next fourth gate, the gate of pain, is just like its name. It is below the gate of life, and opening this gate has already begun to cause damage to the body. Of course, this is for ordinary practitioners. For Rosha, with the feedback of sage art energy, this is not a problem at all. And after opening the gate of pain, on the basis of the gate of life, his various strengths have been greatly improved. To what extent has it been improved? In terms of speed alone, he can now reach twice the speed of sound. Although it is still impossible to compare with space-time ninjutsu like the Flying Thunder God technique, Rosha feels that he can already compete with the lightning release chakra mode of the Hidden Cloud Village. As for genjutsu, it is still Rosha's weakness. However, in front of sage art energy that can even resist the dojutsu of the Mangekyo Sharingan, this weakness does not seem to be a weakness anymore. That is to say, the current Rosha, in the current ninja world, except for Madara Uchiha, Minato who has mastered Sage Mode, and the hidden Otsutsuki, no one can easily get rid of him. Of course, this is Rosha's humble statement. For this unfathomable ninja world, Rosha still feels that he should be as cautious as possible. At least, before obtaining the power comparable to the Sage of 6 Paths, he still cannot be too arrogant. And when he obtains the power comparable to the Sage of 6 Paths, or even just makes the other party helpless against him, that will be enough. In that case, he would dare to attack the tailed beasts. This is also one of the reasons why Rosha is not prepared to continue creating Jinchuriki. As for now, after opening the 4 gates in a month, Rosha is also preparing to rest. On the one hand, he feels a little tired. This fatigue does not come from the body, but from the spirit. On the other hand, the covert mobile unit has brought him some news about Raichi Cave. Sea Country. In the Hokage's office, Rasa, dressed in casual clothes, was stunned by the news reported by the 4 people. Originally, he had given up on letting them search for traces of Raichi Cave, but unexpectedly, a surprise came to his door. "Tell me, what's going on?" Through the narration of the 4, Rasa understood. Simply put, it's because more and more people from outside have been coming to the village recently, and some news has begun to circulate. The 4 thought that since they were searching randomly outside and couldn't find the news of Raichi Cave that the Hokage-sama was looking for, they might as well inquire among the merchants in the village. As a result, unexpectedly, they really found a clue. It was a merchant from the Sea Country. According to him, there is a legend in the Sea Country that there is an island called the Island of Forgetfulness, where many giant creatures live. Some people have seen snakes as big as hills, as well as eagles, centipedes, and so on. Island of Forgetfulness. Do those merchants know the specific location of that island? The 4 nodded, and the leader said, "Yes, we roughly know the specific location." Roughly know. Yes, reporting to the Hokage-sama, according to those merchants from the sea country, that island is surrounded by storms. It's easy to find, but it's not easy to enter. You need a particularly experienced helmsman, and according to the merchants who have been to that island, there are no resources on that island except for giant beasts, so ordinary merchants are unwilling to go. However, listening to the merchants, those beasts are very magical and can use various abilities. I just don't know if it's the Raichi cave that Hokage-sama is looking for. Listening to his subordinate's description, Rasa pondered for a while. Obviously, this is definitely not Raichi cave. Raichi cave should not have other creatures besides snakes. However, this can't be blamed on his subordinates, because even Rasa himself knows very little about Raichi cave. He only told them to look for a place where giant snake-like creatures live. But Rasa still decided to go and take a look. Firstly, through the description, Rasa could hear that there were indeed many summoning beasts on that island, which reminded Rasa of the animal path of the 6 paths of pain in the plot. The many summoning beasts he summoned, maybe they came from this island. Now, he will not give up any way to enhance the power of Sunagaku. Secondly, in addition to the summoning beast matter, the 3 people in Onokuni who were responsible for investigating the legendary monster, Morio, also sent news that without daring to move the tailed beasts, Morio was the best target for him to absorb. Thinking of this, he directly ordered, "Go and communicate to see if those merchants are willing to take us to that island of forgetfulness. The price is negotiable, but don't reveal your identities." Yes, the 4 left to take action. Although Rasa spent most of his time in Dragon's Oasis cultivating the 8 inner gates during this past month, he would still return to the village for a few days to deal with some matters in the village. This is the disadvantage of being in a high position, you can't even relax if you want to. At this moment, Rasa seemed to understand why Naruto was so tired in Boruto. Fortunately, he can still relax for a while at home in the evening. Especially his little wife, Karura, who started out shy but became proactive, giving Rasa great physical and mental pleasure. Rasa naturally understood the reason for Karura's transformation. It seems that she also wants a child. Rasa also cooperated and showed affection for several nights. After leaving the Hokage's office, Rasa first went to Chiyo's place. As expected of the number 1 medical ninjutsu master in Sunagaku, Chiyo's level is unquestionable. After studying the 5 Sharingan, she has begun to try cloning Sharingan. This was of course requested by Rasa, because he remembered that in the Naruto plot, there was a guy who was very admired by the Akatsuki organization, and he achieved the wholesale business of Mangekyo Sharingan through the cloning of Sharingan. Rasa's requirements are not high, not to mention wholesale Mangekyo, 3 Tomo is fine. In this way, coupled with the bloodline of the Uzumaki clan, perhaps it can achieve the artificial transplantation business of Sharingan, and create some artificial Uchiha in Sunagaku. Hanataba's medical ninjutsu talent is indeed amazing, and she has been able to help Chiyo for a month. Judging from Hanataba's happy expression, she has also begun to get used to getting along with Chiyo. When calling Chiyo, Granny Chiyo, she also showed a hint of playfulness. It seems that she has also felt Chiyo's knife-mouthed, tofu-hearted personality. After leaving Chiyo, he went to the orphanage. As soon as he entered, he could see Karura and Nono Yakushi, as well as 5 Sunagaku female chunin and some ordinary caregivers, who were so busy that they were dizzy. These 5 female chunin were also specially promoted for the orphanage. Logically speaking, it is not necessary. Taking care of children does not necessarily require ninjas, but this is also a means of showing kindness, so that Karura can have some trusted subordinates. It's only been a month, and the originally empty orphanage has immediately become lively. The number of children has suddenly increased from a dozen to hundreds. This is enough to show how chaotic the outside world is now compared to the internal peace of Sunagaku. Everyone was a little nervous when they saw the arrival of the Hokage. Only Karura had a happy face. "Why are you here?" "I'm here to see the children, and also to see you." Karura was even happier in her heart, and she couldn't hide her cheerful smile. However, she said, "Then you look at these children, I'm going to be busy." Yeah, Rasa also learned from the 3rd Hokage, showing a gentle appearance, and played with these children for a while. This made these orphans flattered, and their eyes were full of worship and admiration when they looked at Rasa. But it wasn't long before Maki suddenly came to the orphanage, bringing a message. Rasa's eyes were a little surprised. Then I'll go first. I'll go home tonight. Yeah. Seemingly thinking of something, Karura blushed. After returning to the Hokage's office, Shinga, as an assistant, was already waiting here. In addition, there was also a guy wearing a Kurigakure forehead protector, with orange hair that reached his waist, a very fat figure, shark-like teeth, green rapeseed oil painted on his face, and a large knife wrapped in bandages on his back. Seeing the arrival of Rasa, he said very respectfully, "Sukazan Fuguki, the leader of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, has met Hokage-sama." For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.